Chapter 11-12. Alonso's corpse was casually thrown into the wilderness. Liszt had already dragged the heavily injured bronze dragon away from the scene and flew straight to the brass mine magic gate in the land of fertility. Although the majestic jade teleportation formation was destroyed, the yellow flame teleportation formation still stood tall in the southwest border of the Eagle Kingdom. After returning to Flame Island, Liszt directly used the last enchanting dragon soul fruit and launched a spiritual battle in the bronze dragon's spiritual world. The brand of the first-generation bronze dragon knight was simply no match for Liszt, who had the power of destiny. It was erased again and finally disappeared. In its place was Liszt, who became the master of the bronze dragon's spiritual world. Nosdorm is a great name. You definitely can't bear it, but it doesn't matter. You'll be called Nosdorm. Liszt jumped down from the bronze dragon's body and gave it a new name with a smile. The name of the Time King bronze dragon Nosdorm was well known when he played World of Warcraft. However, he was more familiar with the bronze dragon Chromie, so he gave the name Nosdorm to the bronze dragon of this world. Of course, this was just his bad taste. The name was nothing more than a code. The Outer Pavilion pays close attention to the aftermath of this war. Also pay close attention to the naval battle of the Sapphire Duchy. If the Steel and Majestic Duchy have the intention to start another dragon-slaying war, quickly report to me. Soon after, Liszt presided over a meeting of the Outer Pavilion of the Fire Kingdom. The restoration of the majestic jade teleportation formation also needs to be done quickly. Your Majesty, is there any possibility of the majestic jade teleportation formation being restored? The arcanists of the Academy stationed in majestic Yellow City have observed the remnants of the magic gate and found that the dragon magic at the scene is very chaotic. I'm afraid there will be strong interference. The Dean of the Royal Arcane Academy, Chris, said. It doesn't matter. I've asked Chi. It's fine to sort out the magic. You have to hurry up and prepare the required magic materials. As you wish, Your Majesty. The Prime Minister of the Outer Pavilion, Lee William, said, the Snow Wind Duchy's second prince, C. Carter Cornflower, is now isolated in the majestic Yellow Plain. Many other fiefdoms and nobles are also isolated. I'm afraid this year's festival cannot be held smoothly. It was already the end of December, and the first year of the Flame calendar was about to end. Once the Outer Pavilion has confirmed the list of rewards, I will hold a ceremony for both sides to confer the title of Knight. As for C. Carter, grant him the title of Marquis of Snowwind Mountain. His territory will be randomly divided near the field of Realgar and let him cultivate it himself. The Kingdom of Fire will protect him. Xiong Yu's teleportation formation is interrupted. This year's trade with the Snow Wind Duchy, as well as the trade between the Snow Wind Duchy and the Yellowstone Plains Kingdom, will be severely affected. With a few more wars, our finances might not be able to make ends meet, said Paris, the First Minister of Finance. How could I not be able to make ends meet? Didn't I just kill a purple gemstone dragon? That amount of wealth is enough to support the Fire Kingdom's needs for a few years. Your Majesty, I'm mainly worried that the Steel and Xiong Kingdoms will cut off their trade with us. Up until now, the output of the Fire Kingdom's farmland wasn't enough for them to be self-sufficient. They had to rely on large amounts of trade to exchange for food, magic potions and other resources. Let's persevere for now. Once the Xiong Yu teleportation formation is restored, we'll increase our trade with the Yellowstone Kingdom. As for the Steel and Xiong Kingdoms, smuggling is fine. As long as there are profits, I believe that the nobles of the two kingdoms will definitely not give up. The coastline is so long that even the Dragon Knight can't patrol it. In this way, the Outer Pavilion held a meeting for a whole day to discuss the aftermath of the war. Liszt had finished explaining everything that needed to be explained and returned directly to Sun Moon Valley. Chi was using the purple gem stone dragon's corpse to cultivate the mind fruit tree. Brother, the Emerald Dragon's power is very overbearing. Chi can't cultivate the mind fruit tree normally, but the Emerald Dragon's hind legs can directly extract the magic of the Purple Gem Stone Dragon to cultivate the Mind Fruit Tree. Qi pointed to the small sapling that grew directly from the Purple Gem Stone Dragon's body. The sapling wasn't big, but it was growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. There were 4 flower buds on the branches. Qi, do you think the Purple Gem Stone Dragon can satisfy the nutrition of 4 mind fruit trees? List asked. Back then, the light green Purple Gem Stone Dragon also triggered the growth of the mind fruit tree, and it also condensed 4 flower buds. In the end, in order to preserve the life of the light green Purple Gem Stone Dragon, only 2 fruits were produced. Now that the Purple Gem Stone Dragon itself was dead, the mind fruit tree could be cultivated at all costs. Qi's judgment is that it is enough to cultivate 4 mind fruit trees, but to be on the safe side, only 3 can be cultivated. If I use the magic of Brother's other dragons, I may be able to efficiently maintain 4. Qi analyzed. List narrowed his eyes. He tried to feel the threads of fate on this mind fruit tree. Vaguely, he seemed to feel it. There were 4 equally matched threads of fate that were tied together with him. Although he couldn't feel it clearly, he could basically judge it and get the best results. Then let's cultivate 4 together. If there is anything that needs my dragons to do, I will arrange for them to do it seriously. Well, I need Brother's dragons to inject the Dragon Supreme magic into the Purple Gem Stone Dragon's body. Qi will arrange a magic array to convert the Dragon Supreme magic into the Purple Gem Stone Dragon's magic and supply it to the Mind Fruit Tree. Dragon Ultra Magic. That's another huge expenditure. Dragons have always been very stingy with their supreme magic. If you want to get supreme magic, you must give them enough benefits. And List was so poor that he couldn't afford medicine. 9 dragons, no, there were already 10 dragons waiting for him to feed. It would take about a month to cultivate the mind fruit tree. With the promise of a large supply of potions in the future, List finally tricked his own dragons into taking turns to inject the Dragon Supreme magic into the Purple Gem Stone Dragon's body to maintain enough magic to cultivate the mind fruit tree. At the same time, at the end of the first year of the Flame Calendar, that is, on the 30th of December, when the New Year's Day was about to arrive, the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom and the Eagle Kingdom officially severed diplomatic relations with the Fire Kingdom and cut off all trade. Other than that, there are no other actions. List stood in the corridor of the Palace of Stars, looking at the Fire Kingdom that had entered the New Year's Day atmosphere, and asked Merry Dawn Daybreak behind him. According to the information that the blood servants have gathered, the princes of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom have already left for the Blast Furnace Kingdom. They should be seeking an alliance between the 3 kingdoms, and then they will go all out to deal with the Fire Kingdom. Are they not planning to contact the Yellowstone Plain Kingdom, and the Fallen Leaf Kingdom that is further away? The Yellowstone Plain Kingdom and the Eagle Kingdom have never had any contact, and the Fallen Leaf Kingdom and the Blast Furnace Kingdom are enemies, so there is no basis for an alliance. But there is one thing that is worth noting. The alliance between the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom has the shadow of the Noble Frost Kingdom behind it. Our blood servants have already successfully infiltrated the Noble Frost Kingdom. Mary continued, according to the investigation of the blood servants, a Dragon Knight Prince of the Noble Frost Kingdom has already left the Empire, and may have already arrived at the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom. The Noble Frost Kingdom, huh? List did not comment on this. He did not want to meet the Empire so early, but since he was already here, he might as well take things as they come. At most, he would continue to slay the dragons. As long as it was not a swarm of 10 or 20 dragons, it was not a big deal. Even if a group of dragons really attacked, the power of fate would help him avoid danger and make the right choice. Chapter 11:13. Apart from severing diplomatic relations, the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom and the Eagle Kingdom did not make any more drastic reactions. Even when the Amethyst Stone Dragon Phil Iris Flower and the Bronze Dragon Knight Alonso Cyclamen were killed one after another, and their dragons were killed and robbed, there was no official response. Clearly, they were plotting an alliance between the three kingdoms and gaining the support of the Frost Kingdom. List was happy about this. He hosted the Fire Kingdom's first annual celebration as usual, and conferred a batch of meritorious knight titles. The fruit of the soul was being nurtured closely, and the Xiongyu teleportation matrix was being restored. At the same time, following the guidance of the power of fate, good news came one after another. The first good news was that the giant kelp sprite Parker had finally completed the process of becoming a dragon sprite after half a year of evolution, becoming his 5th dragon sprite. Parker, handsome. As a dragon sprite, Parker proudly expressed his joy. He still had no wings, but his ability to control water had greatly increased. When he stood on the surface of the sea, water would naturally lift him up, similar to a Chi's ability to control water. List gave a thumbs up and praised, "Parker, handsome indeed." "Yo, you're handsome too." "Huh, same here." With Parker's evolution, the scale of the kelp forest at the bottom of the sea soared, and the daily production of the giant kelp potion also increased, greatly relieving List of the potion's pressure. The second good news was that after the bronze dragon gnome was stolen, List dragged the other sprites to spend 3 days with Gnome. Then, the coffee sprite Mondo and the nameless barley sprite actually fell in love with the bronze dragon, starting their own evolution. Including the calabash sprite Klein, who was still in the process of evolving, he had another 3 sprites on the verge of becoming dragon sprites. With the power of fate interfering, the chances of success were very high. The third good news was that in the dragon-slaying battle, Chi was becoming more and more adept at using spatial magic. She had a new understanding. She felt that she could already sort out the spatial cracks, and was now experimenting with the collapsed Xiongyu teleportation matrix, striving to repair it without the help of the invisible dragon. "When a Chi has enough experience with the Xiongyu teleportation matrix, I can help Big Brother sort out the spatial cracks outside the ruins, hee." The little sea monster became more and more knowledgeable and powerful. "Very good, I have been waiting for the opening of this ruin for a long time." Touching Chi's hair, List was slightly excited. This land of ruins was the reward for exploring the sacred mountain back then, and the reward was the entrance to the ruins. Generally speaking, it was similar to a different space, or a special, gem space. But because he was blocked by the densely packed spatial cracks, he couldn't enter. So, he had no idea what was inside the ruins. He only knew that it was probably left behind by the ancestors of the Moon Killer, the magic shooters who fought against the Moon Dragon. At the same time, he could vaguely feel that the threads of fate were guiding him to this ruin. Perhaps by entering the ruins, I'll be able to unravel the reason for the destruction of the ancient Moon Empire, find the secret of the Weave Dragon slumber, and the incomparable battle that led to the death of the Smoke Dragon and Emerald Dragon. After the new year, there were not many matters that required the king's presence. List had plenty of time to train freely with his own dragons. The soul imprint of the Grey Iron Dragon Orn had been successful, and now he returned to the dragon nest to train with the 3 dragon knight candidates, Hippolyta, De Gaulle, and Nicholas, to choose a suitable dragon knight. Leo was constantly sent to newly discovered volcanic craters to absorb volcano super magic to speed up his growth. In addition, there was the Royal Sapphire Dragon Rise, who trained with List the most and for the longest time, because it was the only dragon with the potential to become a magic shooter. Using its magic, it could release all kinds of powerful magic, and its combat potential was huge. Prepare for war. In the blink of an eye, it was already March. A piece of news that was not considered bad, but it did make List a little uncomfortable was sent back by the blood servant who explored the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom. The Iron and Steel Pearl Marilyn Red White Rose was officially married to the son of a prince of the Blast Furnace Kingdom. When the Red White Rose family formed an alliance with the Eagle family in the Iron and Steel Ridge, they already knew that the possibility of a marriage alliance with List was 0. Now that the 3 kingdoms had formed an alliance, the Red White Rose family became a part of politics to maintain the alliance between the Iron and Steel Ridge and the Blast Furnace Kingdom. In addition, the Eagle Kingdom and the Blast Furnace Kingdom had already formed an alliance through marriage. It could be said that the three kingdoms had formed an alliance. However, just when List did not know how to react to this news, a really good piece of news came from the noble Frost Kingdom. The blood servant found out that there was a desert area in the north of the noble Frost Kingdom. There were dozens of active volcanoes in the desert, and they often erupted continuously. It's bigger and more spectacular than the endless volcanoes on the Flame Island. List raised his head and looked into the distance. He immediately made a decision. This is a great opportunity for Leo to grow, I must seize it. Soon, he returned to the Palace of Stars, Sun, and Moon, and came to a huge sand table. This sand table was a map of the legendary continent made according to the positioning of the sextant used by the mermaids when they cruised the sea. Many details had been added to the area of the three kingdoms in the northeast, but the other areas were still blank. The blood servant still had another job, which was to go to various places and use the sextant to map. According to the location of the blood servant, the volcanoes called the Calamity Volcanoes are roughly in this location. If I set off from the Brass Mine Magic Gate, the straight line distance is about 58,000 kilometers. With the speed of the invisible dragon Bard, using the normal speed of 400 kilometers per hour, flying for 10 hours in a day would be 4,000 kilometers. It would take about 15 days to travel 58,000 kilometers. The round trip would take a month. Of course, if he could find a natural node near the Calamity Volcanoes and travel through the world outside the material world, the time would be greatly reduced. The world outside the material world was very special. It was not the same dimension as the material world. It was like a ball. The surface was the material world, and the inside was the world outside the material world. On the surface, one had to walk a long way, but on the inside, there were shortcuts. Bring Leo and Winnie. Bard and I will go to the Calamity Volcanoes. As for the Fire Kingdom, leave it to Emily and Achi to protect. If the three kingdoms ally to invade, directly cut off the teleportation portal to protect ourselves. If they really attack, it will be fine as long as the dragon and the people are safe. He prepared for the worst and gave some instructions. In the middle of March, he quietly set off. Along the way, he crossed the Eagle Kingdom, the Blast Furnace Kingdom, and the Fallen Leaf Kingdom, and finally arrived at the Noble Frost Kingdom. However, he was not in the mood to enjoy the scenery. Apart from rushing along the way, he only hurriedly landed and rested. More than a dozen space gems were stuffed with enough food for him, Bard, and Leo to enjoy. The magic potions were a little less, but it was enough to support the consumption of this large family. With the passage of time, they finally arrived at the Calamity Volcanoes at the beginning of April. The climate here was very bad. There were no plants growing, so it was desolate. Roar! Leo felt the aura of the volcanoes and directly flew out of List's body. He turned into a black and red dragon with a wingspan of 70 meters and a long body. He flapped his wings and directly pounced on a volcano. Excitement. This was his first reaction. Go! There are so many volcanoes, and there are definitely many with magma. I hope that you can grow into a real adult fire dragon after you absorb all the volcano super magic here. Then, we will be able to touch the barrier together and advance to Barrier Night. List smiled. He watched as Leo flew into the mouth of a volcano. After a long time, he and Bard had a thought. They escaped into the world outside the material world and looked for the nearby natural nodes. Chapter 11:14. There were 3 easily discovered natural nodes in the disaster volcanoes. They were scattered in a few craters, but there were no more discoveries. In List's knowledge, the formation of every natural node was directly or indirectly related to the super magic explosion. Among the natural nodes that had been discovered, there were jade mines, brass ores, the legs of emerald dragons, and the remains of fire dragons. All of them were related to dragons. Therefore, the discovery of the 3 natural nodes in the Calamity Volcanoes indicated that there might have been fire dragons in ancient times. Other than the movement of the tectonic plates, only fire dragons could create volcanoes. Of course, there was another possibility. Phoenixes, which represented the power of fire, could also create volcanoes. It's a pity that I can't fully unleash the power of Phoenix. It's too difficult for me to create volcanoes. After the discovery of the 3 natural nodes, Liszt took the opportunity to inspect the distribution of magma in the disaster volcanoes. The amount of magma and the amount of volcano supreme magic here was far greater than that of the doomsday volcanoes on the fiery island. There are enough volcano supreme magic. According to Leo's absorption speed, he will become an adult in half a year. At that time, I will fight alongside Leo and become a barrier knight. When I break the barrier, no, I don't need to break it. I just need a slight breakthrough to be invincible in the legendary continent. Standing on a pitch-black rock at the crater of the volcano, Liszt looked past the group of calamity volcanoes and towards the mountains in the distance. After I have unified the 3 countries in the northeast of the legendary continent, the next step will be to destroy the noble Frost Empire. He made a great ambition. After bidding farewell to Leo, who was greedily absorbing the volcano supreme magic, Liszt returned to the fiery island through the world outside the material world. With the natural nodes, he only needed to come once every 3 to 5 days to deliver food and drinks to Leo. The majestic jade teleportation portal was repaired by a chi at the beginning of May. At this time, the Eagle Kingdom, Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom, and Blast Furnace Kingdom officially announced an alliance to develop the sea together. They organized the Dragon Knight to patrol the sea and actively attack the Fire Kingdom's smuggling routes. At the same time, the Dragon Knight also harassed the majestic city that was being rebuilt. Attacking the Fire Kingdom's foreign trade and cutting off the nutrients for the Fire Kingdom's growth was probably the first policy after the 3 kingdoms formed an alliance. This was indeed effective, causing the Fire Kingdom's trade to fall into a crisis, especially when it came to the demand for potions. A few dragons were starving. Let the mermaids participate in the maritime trade. Every transaction should be done quickly to minimize the possibility of being attacked by the alliance of the 3 countries. At the same time, strengthen the relationship with Snow Wind Mountain Duchy. Through Snow Wind Mountain Duchy, trade with Yellowstone Plain Kingdom. It would be best to contact the royal family of Yellowstone Plain Kingdom and tell them that I intend to sell them the space gem. Space gems were important strategic resources, but strictly speaking, they were more like luxury goods. When Liszt was out, he would use the space gems to transport the necessities of daily life. When it came to military use, it would probably increase the endurance of the Dragon Knight. However, a single space gem was not enough to sustain the Dragon Knight for a long period of time. He would have to gather several gems. Therefore, it was not enough to support the enemy. Therefore, it was completely feasible to sell the spatial gems. He had planned to do so a long time ago. Your Majesty, the Duke of Snowwind Mountain has re-established a close relationship with the royal family of Yellowstone Plain. The Duke is full of respect for the Fire Kingdom. I believe he will be willing to act as a middleman and contact the royal family of Yellowstone Plain for us. Spot is very wise. I admire him. Liszt smiled. Although he still sheltered the second Prince C. Carter, it did not prevent him from continuing to do business with Duke Spot. Tell him to tell the royal family of Yellowstone Plain that the space gems are priceless, but I only need magic potions, sufficient magic potions. Yes, Your Majesty. I will tell the Duke of Snowwind Mountain, Marquis of Yellow City Yevich Water Peanut answered. Light emerald, orichalcum, adamantine, and mithril can all be sold. The Fire Kingdom can satisfy the appetite of the royal family of Yellowstone Plain. In addition, tell Spot that as long as he facilitates the transaction, I will give him a commission of 2 points and guarantee that C. Carter will not attempt to restore the throne. The Fire Kingdom had sufficient light emerald. As for magic metal, it did not lack at all. The Alchemy Magic Array had been refining the magic metal for sale. Otherwise, the Fire Kingdom would not be able to support 10 dragons. As you wish, Your Majesty. The Duke of Snowwind Mountain is a smart man. He will definitely make the right choice. Smart people are the best. I like dealing with smart people. The source of the magic potion was solved. List immediately focused all his energy on the entrance of the Land of Relics. Chi rode on the Unicorn Charlie and cleaned the space cracks near the entrance of the Land of Relics every day. The invisible dragon Bard assisted her. Relying on Bard's spatial power and Chi's powerful magic calculation ability, they could basically repair a space crack in a week. There seemed to be a lot of space cracks, but in fact, all they needed to do was to clean out a path for Bard to pass through. Judging from the current situation of the space cracks, there are about 16 space cracks that need to be repaired. That means it will take 4 months, brother, Chi said. 4 months? I can afford to wait that long. He had already gotten the reward of the smoke mission for 2 to 3 years. After waiting for such a long time, he naturally did not mind waiting for another 4 months. Just when the foreign trade of the Fire Kingdom was being attacked by the alliance of the 3 kingdoms, the Duke of Snowwind Mountain, Spot, who was tempted by great benefits, successfully got in touch with the royal family of Yellowstone Plain and facilitated the trade between the 2 kingdoms. I am already familiar with the legendary story of His Majesty List. I hope that the trade between us will allow you to successfully pass through the blockade of the 3 kingdoms. The person sent by the royal family of Yellowstone Plain to host the trade was the Dragon Knight Prince. He spoke in poor wind language. List had not learned the language of the Yellowstone Plain Kingdom, so he could only reply in wind language, Prince of Punjab, send my friendly greetings to His Majesty Pankasek. I hope that the trade can continue as normal. Of course, His Majesty Pankasek has also told me that he hopes that our 2 kingdoms can form a friendship. That would be best. The atmosphere between the 2 was friendly, but the trading personnel under them were negotiating with words. In the end, they spent a week finalizing the details of the trade. 10 space gems were exchanged for 1,000,000 mixed ordinary potions, 100,000 single ordinary potions, and 5,000 special ordinary potions. Almost the value of a space gem could really be exchanged for a large city with a population of 100,000. Unfortunately, the Yellowstone Plain Kingdom did not sell powerful magic potions, supplementary magic potions, and dragon magic potions. 800 light emeralds were exchanged for 200,000 mixed ordinary potions, and a large amount of wheat, barley, corn, and other grains. Magic metals such as mithril, adamantine, and orichalcum were exchanged for a large amount of magic materials. A month later, the trade was successfully completed. This made List heave a huge sigh of relief. Without the supply of magic potions, his dragons would rebel. Relying on this batch of traded materials, the Fire Kingdom could successfully survive for a whole year. It was hard on Bard, who had to repair the space cracks while painstakingly creating 6 space gems. To make up for the number of space rings that List had, he continued to have more than 10 space rings every day for carrying supplies. In the blink of an eye, September arrived, and the fire dragon Leo had not yet returned. Chi had successfully repaired the 16 space cracks and opened up a path to the ruins. Brother, we can open the ruins now. Yes, we can. List rode on the invisible dragon Bard and smiled at Chi, who was riding on the Unicorn Charlie. With a thought, Bard turned into a shadow and rushed to the natural node at the entrance of the ruins. Chapter 11:15. After passing through the natural node, a brand new world appeared in List's vision. It was a foggy world with ice and snow, thin air, and extremely low temperature. This is the alternate dimension built by the magic shooters who killed the ancestors of the Moon People. List activated the super demonic dragon battle energy to resist the extreme cold brought by the surrounding ice and snow. Even with his current physical strength, he could not withstand it. He needed to use the dragon battle energy to keep himself warm. This showed how cold it was outside. Achi, can you withstand it? It's okay, brother. Achi has already switched to the ice elemental incarnation. I don't feel cold at all. It's just that the air is thin, and breathing is not very smooth. Achi and the unicorn Charlie under her behaved very naturally and did not feel any discomfort. As for the invisible dragon Bard under him, he did not feel anything strange either. It was just that flying was very unstable and seemed to be very strenuous. In the end, it landed on a thick layer of snow. Dragons relied on airflow and magic to fly. In this environment, the airflow was thin, and magic was even more scarce. Wuxia. Although Bard was not afraid of the cold, it did not mean that he liked this place and could not help but complain. Patting his neck, List gestured for Bard to walk on his legs. Let's walk forward first. See what's different about this world and what the ancient magic shooters left behind. Bard walked. Charlie was still pacing in the air. Sometimes, it was even more magical than a dragon. Brother, this world is very strange. Why does Achi feel like she is still in the original world? Achi tried to cast a spell, and then she suddenly realized. Yes, brother, this world is the original world. Achi can still extract magic from the magic net. What? List was stunned. Maybe the entrance to the ruins is not the entrance to the alternate dimension, but a normal natural node. This means that Brother and Achi passed through the natural node and came to the legendary continent, or maybe somewhere in the Malfa continent. Judging from the environment here, it should be a mountain peak or a plateau. Not the alternate dimension, but a mountain peak or plateau somewhere? List couldn't accept this. He was still wondering if he could obtain many great treasures from the ruins, but in the end, there was no ruins at all. But soon he thought, no, the reward of the smoke mission is indeed the entrance to the ruins, but it is not indicated that it will be an alternate space. The so-called alternate space is my own judgment based on my understanding of the natural nodes, and I judge that this natural node may lead to an alternate space. The Sun-Moon Valley's natural node was connected to this natural node, so he had thought that one led to the real world and the other to another world. He didn't expect both of them to lead to the real world. However, regardless of whether it leads to the real world or not, this natural node is the entrance to the ruins. Hence, this place is still an ancient ruin. After figuring out the reason behind it, he directly asked, Achi, can you determine our current location? Achi shook her head in distress. I can't, brother. It's snowing all over the place. I can't even tell the direction. Then forget it. Let's continue to walk around. At least figure out where we are. By the way, let's see if there are ancient ruins around. After all, this is a natural node connected to the Killing Moon Sacred Mountain. Maybe there will be magic shooters' remnants here. Yeah. One man, one sea monster, one dragon, and one unicorn searched on this vast mountain peak. The snow was accompanied by heavy fog, making visibility extremely low, and the depth of the snow also made it difficult to find the mountain rocks. Fortunately, List's super demonic dragon Chi was very strong. With a few slashes, he could melt a large amount of snow and ice, exposing the exposed mountain rocks. Relying on this method, they soon found a new problem in this place. Brother, these exposed mountain rocks are very flat, but judging from the traces of rock fracture, they should not be so flat. Achi was knowledgeable and made a direct judgment. Although there are no traces of artificial carving, Achi still judged that this is a man-made platform. You mean, someone cut off the top of the mountain here in order to make a platform on the top of the mountain? Yes. It sounded a little unbelievable, but it soon confirmed Achi's guess. They had walked to the edge of the platform, and the vast snow-covered ground suddenly tilted downwards. There was also a storm formed by the whistling wind and snow. The raging magic power and airflow were comparable to supreme magic spells. With the invisible dragon's physique, white marks appeared on the dragon's scales with just a slight touch of the storm. Wuxia. Bard decisively retreated. He was not an adult yet and did not want to take risks. It seems that your guess is right. It is indeed a man-made platform. This is a mountain that has been cut off. The storm outside is too strong to walk. Let's explore along the edge of the platform to see how big it is. The two walked along the edge of the platform and kept moving forward. After a big circle, it took more than an hour to estimate that the whole platform was about the size of a small town, nearly 100 square kilometers. Except for the platform, everything was surrounded by the storm, and it was difficult to move. Such a high mountain, such a violent snowstorm, I have a vague guess in my heart. Let's spend some more time to clear all the snow on the platform and see what remains of the ancient magic shooters left on this platform. Yes. At that moment, List used Qi and Qi used magic to continuously clean the snow on the platform at the top of the mountain. Of course, they were not fools. They cleaned all the snow, starting from the center of the platform. When a large area was cleaned, artificial traces finally appeared. It was a huge chisel that formed mysterious magic lines. It's part of the lines of the magic circle, but there is no magic flow anymore. Time has abandoned it, Qi judged. Continue cleaning and find the true face of the magic circle. As the snow was cleaned, more and more magic lines were exposed. Each magic line was a few meters thick and hundreds of meters long. Some were independent, some were connected in a large area, and they continued to spread throughout the entire mountain. Finally, it was almost night, when the mountain was completely dark. The magic circle was fully exposed. Because the fog and snow were too heavy, it was impossible to see the entire magic circle, but this did not prevent Qi from drawing the magic circle bit by bit on the blueprint. The sky was completely dark, and the wind and snow were still howling. She lit the magic tube in her hand. List and Qi looked at the magic circle together. The huge magic circle was in the shape of a disc with circles of lines. Each circle of lines was different, and there were all kinds of mysterious magic symbols. It looked like a huge compass, slightly rough and not delicate enough. Qi, can you understand it? Well, I can understand some of it. Brother, look, this symbol means space, and this symbol means time. These two symbols are in the main body of the magic circle, indicating that this magic circle has the nature of space and time. Brother, look at the lines here, they are similar to the magic structure of natural nodes. List's heart stirred and he said, it seems that this magic circle is a spacetime channel. No, it should be a magic spacetime teleportation array. That's possible, but we need to figure out the remaining symbols and lines, and inject magic to retest it, Qi replied seriously. List immediately had an inspiration. Qi, I had a vague guess before, and now, this guess is almost correct. What guess? Qi asked curiously. Mula Gaoding Mountain. The Nine Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 11:16. New Book Notice 4, The Big Dragon is Dead, please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 11:17. There was a legend in this world. In the center of the legendary continent, there was a Mura Gaodin mountain. At the top of the mountain, there was a teleportation circle that led to the moon. Whoever could climb to the top of Mura Gaodin mountain and light up the teleportation circle would be able to control the endless wealth on the moon. There was also a legend that the royal family of the Unsetting Light Empire were the descendants of the magic shooters who returned to Earth from the moon. That was why they were able to establish the most powerful empire in the legendary continent. It was also said that they were the guardian knight of the ancient Moon Empire's magic shooters. After the magic shooters disappeared, the knight became the king. The word Mura Gaodin, in the language of the moon itself meant Moonlight's guardian knight. Mura Gaodin Mountain was located at the junction of the Unsetting Light Empire, the Blue Dragon Empire, and the Ice Field Kingdom. At present, no one knew how high this mountain was because no one could climb to the top of this mountain. Even the Dragon Knight, who could fly at an altitude of 10,000 meters, could not. It was said that halfway up the mountain was more than 10,000 meters high. Huge storms blew all year round, and even the Dragon Knight would be destroyed by the storms. Therefore, thousands of years of legend had passed, but no Dragon Knight had ever reached the top of Mura Gaodin mountain. List suppressed his excitement and said calmly, "Achi, if I'm not wrong, this is Mura Gaodin mountain. The flying teleportation circle under our feet is the teleportation circle that leads to the moon. Mura Gaodin mountain really exists. Brother, does this mean that there are humans on the moon? It's very possible. I didn't believe in legends before, but facts have proven that legends can exist. Otherwise, there would be a reason for them to be passed down. This was a fantasy world. Humans did not need to deliberately fabricate various myths. Those dragons, elves, magic shooters, and Dragon Knight were part of the myths themselves. Therefore, since a large number of legends had been proven to exist, it was not unbelievable that there were humans on the moon. After all, there was even a dragon called the Moon Dragon. Perhaps it came from the moon. If there were dragons on the moon, it meant that there were living creatures. Therefore, it was natural that there were humans living there. Achi, do you think this moon teleportation circle can still be repaired and activated, and then we can be teleported to the moon? Whether there were humans on the moon or not, there was no need to guess too much. They would naturally know once the teleportation array was fixed. Achi looked at the blueprint in her hand and thought quietly for a moment. Everyone, Achi has too little information at the moment, and my research on this teleportation array is too shallow. I can't make any judgment for now. Let Achi study it here for a while and thoroughly understand the teleportation array. Alright, let's study it first. List nodded. He was both expectant and disappointed. He had thought that he would be able to find a treasure left behind by an ancient high mage, but it turned out to be a possible moon teleportation array. However, this did not stop him from continuing to ride on the invisible dragon bard and sweep the snow on the mountaintop platform. Snow was still falling from the sky. If he did not clean it up in time, it would soon be covered by the teleportation formation. This made him think of a solution. Come, Bard, let's go find Leo. Returning to Sun Moon Valley required Bard's help. Otherwise, neither List nor Achi would be able to open the natural node here. Passing through the natural node, they entered the world beyond the material world. The man and the dragon did not return to the palace of stars, sun, and moon. Instead, they found the natural node of the Calamity volcanoes. They passed through it and arrived at the endless volcanoes. Leo was happily absorbing the volcano super demons in the Calamity volcanoes. When List saw him, he did not waste any time. Leo, I need a batch of your fire dragon super demons. Don't worry, I'm just borrowing them for a while. I'll return them to you after I'm done. There won't be much damage. Oh. Leo was unwilling. Hurry up. Oh. In the end, Leo spat out a batch of volcano super demons and let List put them in a container made of volcanic glass. Then, he returned to the mountaintop of Muragadon and released the fire dragon super demons. Every area was protected from the volcano super demons, which formed small magical fire dragons that danced freely. These magical fire dragons constantly released heat, melting and evaporating the snow, forming a hazy mist. It slightly hindered their vision, but there was no more snow on the ground. Achi only needed to release a bit of wind magic to blow away the mist. Then, their vision became extremely clear. Brother, if you're busy, you should go first. Achi is preparing to do research on the mountaintop for the next few days. You can receive the magic platform signal, right? Yes. That's good. Contact the magic platform if there's anything. As List spoke, he controlled the invisible dragon bard to fly through the natural nodes. However, this time, Bard's feet slipped. Thud. The man and the dragon almost fell flat on their faces. Bard was annoyed. However, List noticed that Bard's feet actually stepped on a rock and broke it. After the rock broke, a dark hole was revealed. "Don't move, Bard." He jumped off the dragon and walked to the hole. Looking down, he found that it was a stone staircase that led to the depths of the underground. Achi also rushed over on Charlie the unicorn. Observing with List, she said, "Brother, this tunnel should be part of a magic array. I'll go and check it out first. Be careful. It's dangerous." "It's okay. There are not many things in this world that can hurt me, not to mention a relic left from who knows how many years ago." List was not arrogant, but the power of fate did not warn him. On the contrary, there were faint threads connecting the tunnel, making him feel that this was also part of the reward of the relic entrance. "Achi, go down with brother." Achi was worried. "Okay, let's go down together." List smiled and held Achi's little hand, causing Charlie the unicorn to snort in disdain. The stone staircase was winding, but it was not narrow. List and Achi each held a magic torch. The strong light illuminated the tunnel, and they could see some intermittent runes on the walls. "Achi, what do these mean?" Many of the magic runes created by the sorcerers of the ancient Moon Empire have already been eliminated. Nowadays, the sorcerers use the newest runes. "Brother, look at this rune. It means radiate, and it can radiate magic power. This rune means accelerate, and it can speed up the operation of magic power." As he walked, he noticed that the walls were filled with magic runes that had been casually carved on them. Many of them had been eliminated, and only a few were still in use. Why did the ancient mages carve them? Are they part of the teleportation circle? I don't think so. These runes have no signs of magic invasion. They should be simple stone carvings and have no direct connection with the teleportation circle. As they walked and talked, the tunnel extended down for about 3 kilometers. There was a break midway with a bottomless crack spreading. Other than that, there was nothing special about the tunnel. After 3 kilometers, their vision suddenly opened up, and they had arrived at a huge hall. The hall was the size of a football field. In the center was a stone pillar that looked like an altar, connected to the top of the cave. Around the altar, 108 colorful dragon-shaped stone sculptures were arranged in a circle, surrounding and guarding the altar stone pillar. These stone sculptures. List opened his mouth. Does each represent a type of dragon? Achi, take a look and see if there are any duplicates of the dragon stone sculptures. The new book has been released. City of Treetops welcomes new readers. Chapter 11-18. There were a total of 108 dragon-shaped stone sculptures. They were distributed around the altar. They were not categorized according to the type, and the order was somewhat messy. List and Achi were shocked and began to carefully observe these dragon-shaped stone sculptures. The ancient magic shooters ruled the legendary continent. Their understanding of dragons must be far more comprehensive than it is now. These dragon-shaped stone sculptures are probably all the types of dragons. Brother, can you recognize all the dragon-shaped stone sculptures? I don't know. Let's eliminate the ones we know one by one. For example, let's eliminate the gemstone dragons first. There are a total of 36 types of gemstone dragons. The dragon-shaped stone sculptures had different colors and were made of different materials, so it was easy to identify the gemstone dragons. From red to green, from blue to yellow, from purple to pink, they found a total of 39 types of dragon-shaped stone sculptures that were similar to the gemstone dragons. This one is translucent and petite. It's obviously the stone sculpture of an invisible dragon. This one is verdant and not very big. It should be the stone sculpture of an emerald dragon. And this one has a gray gemstone color. It's different from the colors of the 36 types of gemstone dragons we know. It shouldn't be a gemstone dragon either. The remaining 36 types of dragon-shaped stone sculptures all corresponded to their respective gemstone dragons. From the royal sapphire dragon to the light green gemstone dragon, there was everything, and the proportions and sizes were all consistent. Then they found the dragon-shaped stone sculptures with a metallic luster. There were a total of 54 types. Among them, the iron dragons, copper dragons, tin dragons, gold dragons, silver dragons, platinum dragons, aluminum dragons, lead dragons, and so on could be distinguished. However, there were many that could not be distinguished and could only be vaguely identified. This one is a fire dragon. This one is an ice dragon. Soon, the 8 types of elemental dragons were identified one by one. Among the metal dragons, gemstone dragons, and elemental dragons, the elemental dragons were relatively large, especially the fire dragons. This one is a smoke dragon. Brother, look, it really looks like a cloud of smoke. Achi pointed to a dragon-shaped stone sculpture. The dragon carved on the stone sculpture was composed of clouds of smoke. There was no doubt that it was a smoke dragon. List's eyes stayed on the stone sculpture of the smoke dragon for a long time. Although he was already hatching the egg of the smoke dragon in his mind, it was the first time he saw what the real smoke dragon looked like. Who would have thought that the dragon, as its name suggested, was really made up of smoke? At this point, 54 types of metal dragons, 36 types of gem dragons, 8 types of elemental dragons, as well as invisible dragons, emerald dragons, and smoke dragons had all been identified. There were still 7 dragon-shaped stone sculptures that were hard to identify. Achi, do you think this gray gem-like stone sculpture is a dusk dragon? Look at the way its scales are carved. Don't you think it looks like a lens? The dragon shape of the stone sculpture was not abrupt, and its body was not big either. However, its scales were very textured. Achi floated up and observed carefully. There really is one, big brother. It should be the dusk dragon. Yes, we'll temporarily call it a dusk dragon. List then walked to a new dragon-shaped stone sculpture. I already know of 4 types of sacred dragons. There's still the last type, the fairy dragon. Among the remaining dragon-shaped stone sculptures, this dragon's lines are the softest, slender, and somewhat feminine. Could it be a fairy dragon? Her size is moderate. Let's temporarily call her a fairy dragon. Achi replied. After all, she had too little information about the fairy dragon. She only knew that it might exist in the land of exile. List nodded. So now there are 5 dragon-shaped stone sculptures left. 3 of them should be evil dragons, the cursed dragon, the shadow dragon, and the silent dragon. Then, Achi, you must know which one is the cursed dragon. Achi pointed to one of them. It's this one. It's basically the same dragon shape as the remaining power of the cursed dragon. It's very ferocious and terrifying. This cursed dragon stone sculpture looked a bit like the desolate dragon in Monster Hunter. Its scales were grayish-brown, its body slender like a snake, and its wings were like bones. Its entire body was wrapped in scales, and there was almost no meat on its body. It could be recognized at a glance that it was the cursed dragon. There are 4 other dragon-shaped stone sculptures, each much larger than the fire dragon sculpture. Besides the silent dragon and the shadow dragon, what could the other 2 be? It should be the weave dragon and the moon dragon, Achi said. I think so too. As a dragon that broke the barrier, the weave dragon's body is definitely the largest, so this sculpture should be the weave dragon sculpture. He pointed to the largest of all the stone sculptures. His gaze was slightly heavy. Just one sculpture alone gave him a lot of pressure. The weave dragon sculpture was too large. It was 5 or 6 times the size of the fire dragon sculpture. It was covered in spikes, like a hedgehog dragon. Although the dragon's eyes were only carved from stone, the indifferent and superior aura it exuded was unmistakable. The cursed dragon's body should be similar to the silent dragon and the shadow dragon. Of the remaining 3 stone sculptures, 2 of the smaller ones should be them. The larger one, about 2/3 the size of the weave dragon, should be the moon dragon killed by the Moonslayer ancestor. The moon dragon's name sounded beautiful, and in fact, it was indeed beautiful. The most important thing was that it had a pair of unique wings. These wings were particularly similar to the wings of lesser sprites, greater sprites, and dragon sprites, transparent like cicada wings. The 2 stood on top of the moon dragon's head and carefully sized up the stone sculpture. At the same time, doubts about the relationship between the moon dragon and the sprites emerged in their minds. In the era of the Moonslayer ancestor, the sprites were just sprite worms and could not evolve. The Moonslayer ancestor killed the moon dragon, so the modern sprites can evolve. Achi, what do you think? The cursed dragon's remnant power can pollute the sea. The remnant power of the moon dragon might also be able to pollute, and what it pollutes is the sprite worm. Is it the power of the moon dragon that gives the sprites the power to evolve? Achi raised a possibility. I think so too. You see, the weave dragon's magic power can be used by all wizards. It can be seen that the power of these unimaginable dragons is close to touching upon laws. It can be described as laws. These dragons themselves are the embodiment of a kind of law. This was List's way of thinking about the existence of barriers. In his opinion, elemental dragons, gem dragons, metal dragons, and sacred dragons represented the pinnacle of power, but they were still far from being able to completely control this power. They were only the manifestation of power, not the control of power. Evil dragon, moon dragon, and weave dragon were clearly existences that had broken through barriers, transcending power itself and beginning to grasp the laws behind power. Weave dragon grasped the laws of magic power, moon dragon grasped the laws of elves, and cursed dragon grasped the laws of curses. Although I don't know if my guess is correct, my understanding of this world is becoming clearer and clearer. I also have a new understanding of how Leo and I are going to break through barriers. Hee hee, congratulations, big brother. Achi said with a smile. Achi should also congratulate herself. More truths have been unveiled. Huh, same to you. There are still 2 stone sculptures left. One is the shadow dragon, and the other is the silent dragon. Achi, how do you think they should be distinguished? This dragon looks so ugly, and it's pitch black like a shadow. Let's temporarily call it the shadow dragon. In addition, this stone sculpture has a lot of blue light bulb-like scales. Its body is very fat, like a big toad. Let's temporarily call it the silent dragon. Alright, it's settled. When Achi has some time, I will go back and draw up a copy of the Dragon Picture Collection to add to the encyclopedia. Achi did not forget that she was also the editor-in-chief of the encyclopedia. 11_11622/ Chapter 11:19 Weave Dragon, Moon Dragon, 3 Evil Dragons, 5 Holy Dragons, 8 Elemental Dragons, 36 Gemstone Dragons, 54 Metal Dragons. 108 dragon-shaped stone sculptures revealed all the species of dragons in this world. Although dragons were not the most mystical creatures, dragons basically represented all the power and rules that this world needed to operate. The moon teleportation portal uses the magic array on the ground as the foundation and this dragon-shaped altar as the core. Only then can it really operate and travel between the moon and the moon. Brother, the content of this teleportation portal might be more extensive than Achi imagined. It will take a lot of time. It's okay. I have enough time to wait. List was full of confidence. He had originally planned to obtain ancient treasures to support his dragon rearing. Now that he guessed that the moon dragon had infected the elves, he had a new understanding of how to break through the barrier. When the fire dragon Leo absorbed enough volcano super demon, it would be time for him and Leo to become a barrier knight. Once he succeeded, it would mean that he would master the rules of fire. When that time came, all the Dragon Knight in the legendary continent combined would not be a match for List. He would directly conquer all the empires and kingdoms in the legendary continent, purify the sea, and bring the Malfa continent under his rule. He would build an immortal foundation and let the name, List Flame, become the noblest title in this era. He. Achi held the magic flashlight and kept looking at the details of each dragon in preparation for the dragon picture collection. List looked at the underground hall. The hall was empty. Other than the dragon-shaped stone sculptures and the altar, there were only the walls. When he focused his attention on the walls, he suddenly realized that the walls were not empty. There was a huge mural drawn on them. The mural was not painted. Instead, it was embossed, so it was not obvious. The entire circular wall was a continuous mural. It was presented 360 degrees in a circle. There was a paragraph of moon language text at the end of the mural. Achi, come here quickly. Study this mural. List called Achi over. Achi was very proficient in moon language. She quickly translated the moon language text. It was as if every paragraph was like a poem with a special rhythm and charm. At first, humans lived like beasts. Then, they learned tools and etiquette. Growing up day by day, thinking about the future. The great dragon awakened from the will of humans, believing that it was the continuation of order. When the will is shaken, the dragon disintegrates. Its bones and blood become spirits, and its soul becomes a dragon. The spirits become all things, and the dragon becomes power. The divine dragon strengthens the origin, the evil dragon purifies the filth, the elemental dragon commands the atmosphere, the gem dragon embellishes space, and the metal dragon spreads resources. There are mana dragons that operate the weave, the laws of the sun and the moon. Magic is one of them. Sun Mafa and Moon Legend both use the magic dragon as their totems, growing and multiplying endlessly, changing the Big Dipper. The narration of the language of the moon came to an end, but it had a huge impact on List and Achi. Although the language of the moon in the ancient times was somewhat awkward, it did not prevent them from understanding its meaning. List had many questions in an instant. The dragon was born from the will of humans? The great dragon disintegrated before there were elves and dragons? The mana dragon should be the weave dragon, the totem of the moon empire and sun empire? This is too mythical. Achi's gaze shifted from the narration of the language of the moon to the mural, and she said thoughtfully, "Brother, maybe this story is true." List did not immediately pursue the matter. "Forget it, let's see what the mural is about." He and Achi shone the flashlight together and looked down the mural clockwise from right to left. Such a complete mural was mainly about dragons, and humans were only a part of the symbols. At the beginning of the mural, there was a mana dragon emitting threads that looked like a spider's web. The threads connected many cities on the ground, and there were magicians floating above the cities, releasing magic. There were also some dragons flying around the cities, and the atmosphere was very peaceful. One of the big cities had a moon floating above it, and another had a sun floating above it. But soon, 3 dragons began to attack humans. According to the carvings, they were the Shadow Dragon, the Cursed Dragon, and the Silent Dragon. So the next part of the mural showed humans defeating the 3 evil dragons with the help of other dragons, especially the Mana Dragon. The Silent Dragon died to the north of the 2 cities, the Cursed Dragon died in the ocean between the 2 cities, and the Shadow Dragon died around the city with the sun floating. The mural then entered a new era, seemingly polluted by the 3 evil dragons. The Sun City suffered heavy casualties, and the sea suffered heavy casualties. Monsters crawled out of it. The Mana Dragon prepared to spit dragon's breath at the monsters in the sea, the extreme north, and the Sun City. The human magicians of the Moon City also seemed to be helping the Mana Dragon, but another group of Moon City magicians confronted it. Then this group of opponents joined forces with the 5 holy dragons and created a magic array on the top of a high mountain. The magic array rushed directly to the moon. After the mana dragon discovered it, it led a large number of gem dragons, elemental dragons, and metal dragons to besiege the 5 holy dragons. The emerald dragon, invisible dragon, dusk dragon, and smoke dragon were killed one after another, and only the fairy dragon seemed to have escaped to an unknown place. The magicians of the Moon City began to cheer for victory. But then a dragon was born on the moon, and it could be seen that it was the tentative moon dragon in the previous dragon-shaped stone carvings. The moon dragon flew out of the moon and flew over the Moon City. The mana dragon once again united many dragons and the magicians of the Moon City to face the moon dragon. At this point, the mural ended. This seems to be a story before the collapse of the Moon Empire. Do you understand it, Achi? List asked. Achi nodded. Brother, Achi understood the contents of the mural. Combined with the content of the poem described in the previous moon language, it is the ancient magicians who introduced the history of the origin of the world. Tell me what you've figured out. Let's see if your understanding is the same as mine. Yes. Achi began to summarize with her understanding. After the birth of humans, dragons were born with the will of humans, but humans soon fell into war or other troubles. Their will began to waver, and the dragons disintegrated. Then they disintegrated into elves and dragons to help humans. At this time, on the legendary continent and the Malfa continent, humans established 2 civilizations with the mana dragon as their totem and continued to develop magic. But soon after, the evil dragons began to invade. The mana dragon, many dragons, and humans joined forces to kill 3 evil dragons, but the monsters contaminated by the evil dragons began to run rampant. The mana dragon planned to clear the monsters. The Moon Empire's magicians were divided into 2 factions, one determined to clear the monsters, and the other seemed to want to protect the monsters. The protection faction obtained the help of the Holy Dragon, built a moon teleportation circle, and went to the moon. The Holy Dragon was then killed by the Mana Dragon, and only the Fairy Dragon escaped. Then the Moon Dragon was born and returned to this planet. So the Mana Dragon and the Moon Dragon, that is, the clearing faction and the protection faction, began to fight. She paused. Achi said again, the Moon Dragon must be dead, but its power was dispersed to all the elves, helping the elves to evolve. Maybe it was preparing to revive from the Elven King. The Mana Dragon was seriously injured. It should be the Weave Dragon that Brother and Achi met. It has been sleeping, causing the weave to shrink. The Moon Empire also perished in this battle. Chapter 11:20. Civilization collapsed. Then, humans made a comeback in the treetops. Insect mycelium queen that scattered spores, fruit sprites that hung from the southeast branches, lactic acid-infected beasts that produced yogurt, human elves that called themselves druids, and mist fairies that blended in with the flowers and trees. With such a wonderful fantasy world, why didn't you invest in a new book? Arrangements. Lao Bai's new book from The Great Dragon is Dead. Currently typing, please wait a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 11:21. The history that Achi summarized was similar to the history that Liszt had concluded in his mind. It sounded inconceivable that dragons and elves were born from the will of humans, but when he thought about it carefully, it was all traceable. Elves could contract with humans, and as long as the teeth of elves touched human blood, the contract would be immediately successful. Although dragons would not simply contract with humans, the dragon tooth platform on the back of the dragon was born to be ridden by humans. It was simply a considerate artificial design. So, originally, there was a big dragon in this world. After the big dragon died, there were so many colorful dragons and elves. He sighed with admiration, but he felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. Or rather, he felt that he had fallen from a great and honorable image to a big villain. According to the murals, the magic dragon was obviously on the side of justice. As the totem of the Moon Empire and the Sun Empire, it supported the magic civilization of humans. And the side of the Holy Dragon, who opened the Moon Teleportation Array, played the role of the villain. Now, Liszt nurtured the Smoke Dragon in his mind, which was equivalent to merging with the Smoke Dragon. Since the Smoke Dragon was the villain, then he was naturally the villain when he combined with the villain. What worried him even more was that the Mystic Dragon was sleeping. If it woke up, would it come looking for trouble again? Back then, it was the Magic Dragon that killed all the Holy Dragons. Except for the Fairy Dragon who ran away, the Invisible Dragon, Emerald Dragon, Dusky Dragon, and Smoke Dragon fell on the spot. Now, the reborn Invisible Dragon Bard has become my partner, and the Smoke Dragon is my incarnation. I can't wash away this villain role at all. He recalled the scene he saw with the Time Diamond. It was a pair of eyes that woke up from the void and stared at him. There was no doubt that it was the Magic Dragon's eyes. What's more, maybe the Holy Dragon was a dragon that broke through the barrier in the past, and it was only because it was killed that it fell to this level. Logically speaking, a holy dragon that could be named holy would definitely not be inferior to an evil dragon. Now, it could be confirmed that the cursed dragon was an existence that broke through the barrier, but the Invisible Dragon Bard did not even have the strength to fight an ordinary dragon head-on. Although Bard was not yet an adult, the strength it showed was indeed a little exaggerated. Compared to gemstone dragons, metal dragons, and elemental dragons of the same species, which can have multiple dragons, holy dragons and evil dragons seem to exist alone. He had noticed that there was a white iron dragon in both the Eagle Kingdom and the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom. However, the holy dragon and the evil dragon had never appeared before. Perhaps they're all existences that have broken through the barrier and begun to grasp the rules, so they've become unique dragons? In a short period of time, he had already thought about many things. He quickly accepted that he might become the villain and face the threat of the demonic dragon in the future. Regardless of who was right and who was wrong in the ancient times, the Moon Empire and the Sun Empire had long perished. The magic civilization had also collapsed. There was no longer any point of reference. Back then, the magic dragon commanded the dragons to kill the holy dragon, but it was also heavily injured in the battle with the moon dragon. As long as I can break the barrier again and help my dragon master the laws of nature, then the formless dragon, the smoke dragon, the fire dragon, and so on at the barrier level can join forces and fight the magic dragon. Furthermore, he also thought of the scene brought by the Time Diamond. The future Eichi once told him that if possible, it would be best for him to ride all the dragons that he could ride. I'm afraid this is the Twilight Dragon reminding me that sooner or later I will have to fight the magic dragon again. Regardless of whether it was true or not, he had to try his best to ride more dragons. As long as he rode all the dragons in the legendary continent and even the Malfa continent, and a few more dragons broke through the barrier, the magic dragon would not matter. This was no longer the era of the magic civilization. It was the era of the night, his era. Brother. A cheese call pulled Liszt, who was fighting a battle of wits and courage with the magic dragon in his heart, back to reality. What's wrong? Did you find something new? Yes. A chi pulled Liszt to a place on the mural and shone the magic light on the Sun City in the mural. Brother, the shadow dragon died here. Then she shone on another location, north of many cities. The silent dragon died here. Liszt did not understand. A chi continued, in addition, the cursed dragon died in the sea, and the 3 evil dragons polluted most of the creatures. But a chi has a doubt. Why did the holy dragon and some of the mages in the Moon City oppose the magic dragon to eliminate these polluted monsters? Yes, I also have doubts. Why would the holy dragon protect the polluted demons? He had seen those demons in the depths of the sea. They were very evil. Even after tens of thousands of years, they were still evil. The monsters polluted by the cursed dragon were rotten and confused, turning the sea into the Devil's Sea. In that case, it was imaginable how terrifying the monsters contaminated by the silent dragon and shadow dragon would be. Logically, there was no reason for the holy dragon to protect such monsters. Achi gave a guess. Achi is thinking, does the holy dragon think that the polluted monsters can be cured? Can they be cured? List immediately thought of Gulvig, the mermaid. When she was just polluted by the power of the cursed dragon, it was Achi who cured her. This makes sense. Maybe the magic dragon decided to use strong means, and the holy dragon used soft means? There is no clue to support Achi's view for the time being. Brother, you can put it aside for now. In fact, Achi has another doubt. Oh, tell me about it. That is, the will of humans gave birth to the dragons, and the dragons disintegrated and divided into countless elves and dragons. What about the intelligent races that are not humans? Sirens, mermaids, and those races that have been obliterated in the long river of history, what kind of magical creatures were born from their wills? Achi's doubts touched List deeply. That's right. They are all intelligent races. It doesn't make sense that only humans can give birth to dragons. By the way, do you think those pseudo-dragons were born from the will of other intelligent races? The sky behemoth Branch, the sea behemoth Leviathan, and the land behemoth were as majestic as dragons in legends. Unicorns and phoenixes were seen by List with his own eyes. They were no less magical than dragons. Although the giant lion Nimir was a little weak, its immortal skin and thick flesh were also magical. There were also the legendary Cerberus, Hydra, Chimera, the giant wolf Fenrir, the earth python, and the laden dragon. There were many magical things. If dragons and elves were born from the will of humans, then where did these pseudo-dragons come from? Achi is not sure if the pseudo-dragons were born from the will of intelligent races, but the murals obviously did not record this information. Instead, it was dominated by humans. It felt like they deliberately ignored other races and the existence of the pseudo-dragons. Especially the description of the moon language, it made history unclear. For example, the mermaids. In the era of the Moon Empire, the mermaids ruled the sea. Their influence was definitely no weaker than that of humans. There was no reason for the mermaids to go extinct after being polluted by the cursed dragon. Unfortunately, too much history had been covered up. There was no way to know more with just a mural. List rubbed Achi's head and signaled her not to be stubborn. There are only so many clues. It's useless to blindly think about it. When the moon teleportation circle is fixed, we can go to the moon to look for clues. Maybe the moon dragon was born from the will of the immigrants on the moon. Achi revealed a comfortable smile like a kitten. Okay, I'll listen to you. Chapter 11:22. Achi was prepared to put down most of her work and stay at Mura Gaoding Mountain to study the moon teleportation circle. List left first. He still had important work to do. After the alliance of the three countries, they became more and more aggressive, forcefully restricting the survival of the Fire Kingdom. And in order to prevent being killed by List alone, all the Dragon Knight began to form teams, at least 5 dragons to patrol in a group. Carl Low Violet, Lure Copper, Figo Iris, Alonso Cassiopeia, the blood of the 4 Dragon Knight was enough to alert them. List was quite helpless about this. If he could not fight a direct battle, he could not display his personal advantage in combat. And it was not realistic to launch a development order or a disciplinary order. Perhaps his actions had crossed the line. Now the Dragon Knight of the 3 countries no longer forbade killing ordinary knight. And if they really fought, the Fire Kingdom's orders of chivalry were not enough. In the battle between the Dragon Knight and the Dragon Knight, ordinary knight was too weak, so weak that the life and death of the country had no direct relationship with them. The biggest role of the knight class was to stabilize the country's logistics and accumulate a large amount of resources to supply the dragon's needs. List relied on the country's knight to manage the serfs' farming, and then turn in taxes and resources to exchange for various dragon needs to support his 10 dragons. Your Majesty, the smuggling routes to the Eagle Kingdom and the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom have been swept by the Dragon Knight of the 3 countries many times. Our fleet has the help of the Mermaid Lord, so we are not afraid of being swept, but the noble lords who are willing to engage in smuggling with us have all retreated. Promising to give up profits can't attract the noble lords. They have already given up a large part of the profits, but the deterrence of the Dragon Knight is too great. These noble lords have even disbanded their mercenary groups and don't dare to approach the coastline. Hearing this, List sighed. He still underestimated the deterrence of the Dragon Knight to ordinary people. This was not Earth. No matter how strict the law was, there would still be people who took risks. There was a powerful force in this world that was beyond imagination. It was very difficult for ordinary people to escape from such a force. What about the trade with the Yellowstone Kingdom? The trade is still going well, but with the suppression from the 3 kingdoms, Yellowstone Plain Kingdom should have received the news. The trade volume is increasing, but the turnover hasn't increased much. The First Minister of Finance, Paris Flame, handed over a report. List pushed it away. He couldn't be bothered to look at it. Feeling a little annoyed, the Yellowstone Plain Kingdom also started to take advantage of the situation. However, thinking about it, it was normal. The Fire Kingdom was currently in a difficult situation. It was a good opportunity to be exploited. Even a wolf would want to take a bite of such a big piece of meat, or even take more bites. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Have the outer pavilion prepare a set of materials for the teleportation magic matrix. I want to build a new teleportation magic matrix." Your Majesty, where does the teleportation portal lead to? To a mercenary city-state. There were 3 empires in the legendary continent, the Unfalling Light Empire, the Blue Dragon Empire, and the Noble Frost Empire. There were also 11 kingdoms, the Iron and Steel Ridge, Eagle, Furnace Castle, Yellowstone Plain, Fallen Leaf, White Deer, Icefield, Bird of Paradise, Thunder Dragon Cliff, Devil's Snare, and the Kingdom of Grey Castle. There were also 3 major city-states. A city-state was a national system of small duchies. The 3 major city-states were the Freedom City-State, the Lost City-State, and the Mercenary City-State. Previously, there were mermaids patrolling the sea, blood servants locating everywhere, and the information collected by the caravan. The professional arcanists of the Royal Arcane Academy drew a complete map of the legendary continent. According to the map, the Noble Frost Empire was in the northern continent, the Unfalling Light Empire occupied the western continent, and the Blue Dragon Empire occupied the southern continent. The Icefield Kingdom was in the center of the continent, sandwiched between the 3 empires. The Mula Gaoding Mountain was located at the junction of the Icefield, the Unfalling Light, and the Blue Dragon Empire, but not the Noble Frost Empire. In addition, the Noble Frost Empire and the Blue Dragon Empire were separated by the Icefield Kingdom, the Lost City-State, and the Freedom City-State. In the eastern part of the continent, there were 11 major kingdoms. Among them, the Fallen Leaf Kingdom, the White Deer Kingdom, and the Noble Frost Empire were closely connected, and the center of the border between the 3 kingdoms was the Mercenary City-State. List's gaze was set on this place. He wanted to open a teleportation portal between the Fire Kingdom and the Mercenary City-State. The reason was simple. A city-state was a collection of small countries. They were loosely managed and suitable for trade. Another important reason was that many of the small countries that joined the mercenary city-states, or rather, the dragon-rearing families that joined them, had been destroyed by the Noble Frost Empire. The Noble Frost Empire had been expanding since the era of kingdoms. In the thousands of years since it became an empire, many dragon-rearing families had been destroyed. Therefore, hatred had long been buried in the hearts of the rulers of the mercenary city-states. They were very suitable partners. After deciding to open a teleportation portal in the mercenary city-state, Liszt did not stay in the Palace of Stars, Sun, and Moon for long. After hanging out with Paris and Emily for 2 days, he rode the invisible dragon Bard and rushed to the Calamity volcanoes. He comforted the fire dragon Leo. Then he changed direction and flew from the Calamity volcanoes to the mercenary city-state. After flying for 6 days, he finally arrived at the mercenary city-state. Because he had sent blood servants to settle in before, he knew more about the mercenary city-states. There were a total of 7 major cities here. They were controlled by 7 dragon-rearing families and raised 7 dragons. Even though the 7 families schemed against each other, they were of one mind when it came to defending against foreign enemies. However, the noble Frost Empire had never stopped infiltrating the mercenary city-states. In the past 100 years, there had been 3 assassination attempts on the heads of dragon-rearing families. The common language here is quite messy. Some use the Chai language of the noble Frost Empire, some use the Ya language of the Fallen Leaf Kingdom, some use the Deer language of the Whitestag Kingdom, and some local dialects. But what does that have to do with me? I don't need to communicate with them. He rode Bard into the world outside of the material world and wandered around in search of natural nodes. He was getting more and more familiar with the power of fate. Soon, he found an obvious natural node according to the guidance. After passing through, he appeared at the foot of a small, desolate mountain. According to the sextant, this small mountain was located southeast of the mercenary city-state. It was a hilly area that had yet to be developed. 300 kilometers to the north was a large city. 400 kilometers to the west was another large city. 600 kilometers to the southeast was the territory of the Whitestag Kingdom. Very good. The location is not bad. I can build a teleportation formation here and establish a city in the Kingdom of Fire. Liszt was very satisfied. He named this place Prairie Hills, taking the meaning of a single spark starting a prairie fire. This meant that the flames of the Kingdom of Fire would constantly radiate here. The future city was also named Prairie City. I'll choose the natural node of Reef City as the natural node of Blazing Island. This way, I won't have to directly connect to the island, but I won't have to go through other places. The 2 natural nodes that needed to be connected were confirmed. Next, when the magic materials were ready, the teleportation formation between Prairie City and Reef City could be built. Achi was already very familiar with controlling the teleportation formation. Setting up such a formation did not require much time. At the same time, the outer pavilion also started working. Once the teleportation formation was built, they would immediately start building Prairie City. They would also send trade personnel to the major factions of the mercenary city-states to negotiate with them. They were very busy. Another month passed, and it was October in the blink of an eye. While comforting the great thorn sprite, Ella, who was frowning because she could not find a dragon she liked, Liszt suddenly had a thought and smiled, very good. After Ethan, Aun has also found his dragon knight. Hippolyta, it's actually this little girl. Chapter 1123. Hippolyta, the Moonslayer indigenous girl. During the process of conquering the Moonslayer indigenous tribe, Liszt saw her in a new light because she protected a few elves and sent her to the academy to learn the knight course. After that, Hippolyta displayed outstanding talent and became a member of the first batch of Dragon Knight candidates. Because she was very beautiful, she was chosen as the Moonslayer flower by some busybodies. Among the 3 members of the first batch of Dragon Knight candidates, her talent was not outstanding. On the contrary, she might be slightly inferior to Nicholas Bellows and de Gaulle. De Gaulle was especially talented. Liszt always felt that grey-mouthed iron dragon Aun would most likely choose de Gaulle. Unexpectedly, after a period of training, Aun actually chose Hippolyta. Aun, bring Hippolyta to the Palace of Stars to see me. He communicated with Aun using the Dragonheart code. Hippolyta had just ridden a dragon and had not learned how to communicate using the Dragonheart code. Liszt, when are you going to ride a new dragon? Ella asked sullenly. It was also a greater elf. Even though its value was one of the top few greater elves due to the existence of the supplementary thorns, it was much lower than the man-eating tree dragon elf, Kali, the buckwheat dragon elf, Yadi, the phoenix parasol tree dragon elf, Ani, the pea dragon elf, Ike, and the algae dragon elf, Parker. Even the greater elf Wang Lian Kench was worth more than it. Kench could produce the dragon potion, Water Dragon Water. In particular, when Ella met Parker once, she was ridiculed by the sharp-tongued Parker. She was so angry that her body trembled. Now, among List's greater elves, no one was more eager to evolve than Ella. It had always been her wish to be the elves' butler. She wanted to be stronger than all the other elves. Don't worry, Ella. Achi has successfully cultivated the soul fruit tree. Soon, the 4 mystifying dragon soul fruits will ripen. When that time comes, I will look for a new dragon to ride. You can choose as many dragons as you like. There will always be a dragon that suits you. You have to be faster. Don't worry. List was now waiting for Leo's return. He wanted to train with Leo and break through the barrier as soon as possible. When he became a barrier knight, it would be time for him to sweep across the legendary continent. By then, all the dragons in the legendary continent would become his mounts, regardless of whether they were dragons raised by the country or evil dragons in the wild. Actually, I'm a little worried. If there are too many dragons, it's impossible to complete the soul imprint and completely integrate with the dragons. The gemstone dragon and metal dragon were still fine. As long as he won the spiritual battle, they could slowly get used to each other. He had a long enough lifespan to get used to it. However, the elemental dragon, which was the evil dragon sequence, was more troublesome. Evil dragons had a strong resistance to mental integration, and their evil thoughts were always growing. This was especially true for adult elemental dragons. Their evil thoughts were probably already deeply rooted in them, and it was difficult to really eliminate them. As long as he broke free from the Dragon Knight's suppression, the evil thoughts would crazily devour the mark. Ella didn't know what List was worried about, but it said murderously, "List, if there is a dragon that is not honest, you kill it." Huh? List patted Ella's head hard. Why do you have so many strange ideas? Isn't it good to be a quiet elf? Wah. Jayla put her hands on her hips. Her original depression had been thrown aside. She flew into the air and said with great pride, "Jayla wants to become the elf housekeeper of the sun, moon, and stars palace. No one can stop her. Not Carly, not Yadi, not even Parker." Then she landed on List's shoulder. "List, take me to the mountain copper dragon Marta. I feel like I can get along with it a little longer. Or I can go see the bronze dragon gnome. I haven't seen Gnome for long, and I'm a little impatient. Otherwise, would have liked him." "Ella, don't be impatient. Set your mind right. I believe that one day, you will meet a dragon you like." List advised helplessly. "Don't worry. In my heart, the position of the elf butler of the Palace of Stars will always be reserved for you. And I also believe that you will become a dragon elf sooner or later. Wah, you are the most special one. Do you understand? Perhaps ordinary dragons don't suit you at all. Then only the invisible dragon Bard suits me, but I don't like the smell of him chewing smoke grass. Wah, that really makes Ella uncomfortable. Maybe it's not Bard. It's another dragon. Anyway, wait." He could only comfort himself. The power of fate could not illuminate the threads around Ella. This meant that at least in the short term, she could not touch the opportunity to evolve. This could not be rushed. All right. Ella returned to her room with a little emotion. She needed to calm down. Orn and Hippolyta hurried to the Palace of Stars the next morning. List received the Moon Killer flower in his study. In just a few months, Hippolyta seemed to have matured a little. She was graceful and exuded a youthful aura unique to a young girl. "Your Majesty. Dispense with the formalities." List smiled. "How did it feel to ride a dragon?" "It was wonderful. I didn't sleep for a whole night. It felt so incredible. I thought I couldn't compete with Nicholas and Charles de Gaulle. Orn had always been cold to me. When he chose me, I felt like I was in a trance," Hippolyta said excitedly. Not only was Hippolyta surprised, but Liszt was also surprised. Just now, he had used the Dragon Heart Code to carefully ask Orn. Orn's answer was that Hippolyta had the quality of kindness. This was a precious shining point that he did not see in Liszt. This made Liszt unbearably angry. "Am I not kind? Under my rule, be it nobles, commoners, or serfs, all live and work in peace. Although there is no equality for everyone, basic food and clothing and human rights are guaranteed. Compared to other countries, the Kingdom of Fire is simply heaven." However, Orn's reply had a clear meaning. The kindness of a ruler was different from the kindness of an individual. Orn yearned for the kindness in the heart. "That's called the Virgin Mary." Liszt snorted disdainfully, but he approved of Orn's choice. Although the Virgin Mary was hateful, a true Virgin Mary in one's heart was worthy of admiration. Hippolyta knew how to protect elves at a young age. Perhaps there was a Virgin Mary in her heart. "Orn, kindness is worth pursuing, but as a dragon and a dragon knight, you need to understand that battles are blood and fire that a dragon knight must experience." "Roar!" Orn responded to Liszt with certainty. He was already a few hundred years old and had experienced all kinds of battles, big and small. He would never be soft-hearted. Moreover, between him and Hippolyta, he would be the one guiding Hippolyta in battle. He wouldn't be affected by Hippolyta's Virgin Mary nature. Don't forget that in his spiritual world, there was still Liszt's spiritual brand. Liszt, who didn't have the Virgin Mary nature, wouldn't condone Hippolyta's undeserved kindness. Of course. His conversation with Orn didn't need to be made clear to Hippolyta. Looking at the indescribably excited young girl, Hippolyta was already an adult and not much younger than Emily. "Hippolyta, you're lucky to have been chosen by Orn to become the glorious and holy Dragon Knight. You'll be the second female Dragon Knight in the entire legendary continent. Rest assured, Your Majesty. Hippolyta will earnestly carry out her duties as a Dragon Knight and protect the Flame family and the Kingdom of Fire." "Very well. Next, I'll let Emily teach you how to become a qualified Dragon Knight. Go home and spend a few days with your family. The training of a future Dragon Knight is very arduous." The young girl puffed out her full chest, brimming with confidence. Hippolyta never fears hardship. Chapter 11:24. The best news in November was not that the great Calabash spirit, Klein, had graduated from the Royal Sapphire Dragon, Rise, and began the final stage of his sprint toward becoming a dragon spirit. The majestic power of fate surrounded Klein, so that there would be no accidents during his evolution. The best news was that after Leo's cultivation in the Calamity volcanoes had reached perfection and absorbed enough volcano super demons, his body finally grew to a length of 100 meters and a wingspan of 100 meters. He had become a real adult fire dragon. Roar! The roar was even more intimidating with a strong sense of oppression. The scales on his body turned from black and red to dark brown, and only a trace of dark red flames flowed in the depths of the cracks. The dragon horns on his head became more and more ferocious, and the narrow vertical pupils in his dragon eyes looked full of evil. His entire temperament exuded an awe-inspiring evil aura. "Leo, congratulations on becoming an adult. It took you 7 years to pass the juvenile stage and become an adult giant dragon." Liszt stood on the head of the invisible dragon bard and looked at the majestic fire dragon in front of him. Leo nodded slightly like a human. The next moment, his entire body turned into a ball of flames and crashed into Liszt's chest, turning into the familiar fire dragon totem. List patted his chest and sat back on Bard's dragon tooth platform. Immediately, the man and the dragon tore through the material boundary and returned to the world outside the material world. They found the natural node of the Sun-Moon Valley and transmigrated back. From now on, let me spend some time alone with Leo and touch the stronghold. In one of the active craters of the Doomsday volcanoes. List and Leo stood at the crater and began their official breakthrough as a stronghold knight. Previously, there was a smoke mission to touch the stronghold. He had successfully completed it with his understanding of creating something out of nothing. But after understanding the murals on Mount Mura Gaoding and understanding the existence of the stronghold, his concept of creating something out of nothing had been sublimated. Before, I thought that super demons existed because there shouldn't be super demons here, but there should be, so there was. Actually, this is very superficial. It's not that there should be, so there is. It's just a manifestation of the rules. The existence of super demons is a product derived from the rules. This was not an idealistic worldview, but it could not be considered a materialistic worldview either. This was the unique rule system of this world. The demonic dragon, the moon dragon, the evil dragon, and even the previous holy dragon were the masters of this rule. Now, it's up to you and me to master the rules. Roar. The best way to grasp the laws is to fuse with them. This volcano will be our training ground for a long time in the future. List touched the scales on Leo's forelimbs and took the lead to jump into the crater of the volcano, where there was bubbling hot magma. Leo roared and followed closely behind, jumping into the crater of the volcano. It was so huge that it had to transform into its magic form halfway and merge with List into the magma. It had been a long time since Leo had harvested Volcano Supreme Demons in Doomsday Volcano, so there were thick Volcano Supreme Demons everywhere in the magma. The tiny Supreme Magic particles were doing Brownian motion in the magma. No one knew where they came from or how they came to be. List in his magic form and Leo in his magic form had merged into one. The two synchronized thoughts controlled a huge mass of mana, wantonly capturing and sensing the metamagic particles while thinking in the magma. In fact, Leo's body was made of supreme magic. After absorbing the essence of the phoenix, List's body basically became a supreme magic particle. Their resonance with supreme magic was to a large extent the closest to the rules. Cultivation didn't know time unless they were hungry. After soaking in the magma for a whole day and night, List was the first to give up. He was already hungry without a meal, let alone a whole day. He rushed out of the magma and returned to his human body. He took out food from his spatial ring and ate. Leo also rushed out and enjoyed his favorite grilled steak. They soaked in Doomsday Volcano for a whole half a month. Although they were still far from breaking through the barrier and mastering the rules, he and Leo's control of the supreme magic particle had greatly improved. Now, I can truly call myself a half-step barrier knight. With his combat power as a fire dragon knight, he would definitely be able to kill any dragon knight in the legendary continent in seconds. He didn't need the help of the dragon knight's secret manual. He could just rely on his powerful fire element mana to kill everything. Come, let's go back and get Emily and Hippolyta to help us test our combat power. Roar. Back at the Palace of Stars. Emily, who was riding the light emerald dragon Isin, and Hippolyta, who was riding the grey iron dragon Aun, were already waiting at the back of the mountain. The two female dragon knights' combat power wasn't strong, but they were enough to test List's combat power. Your Majesty, Hippolyta is still adapting to his identity as a dragon knight. He might not be able to unleash Aun's full combat power. Please let me be the main attacker, Emily said. He was as valiant and heroic as ever. Hippolyta wore a bright silver armor and held an 8-meter-long dragon spear in his hand. It was forged from a magical metal alloy. The Fire Kingdom lacked many things, but magical metal was not one of them. Your Majesty, although I'm not as strong as Emily, I'll do my best. Don't be nervous. I'm just testing my current strength through the battle. List smiled faintly. Leo and I have been reborn. You don't have to feel burdened when you unleash your full strength. This is the only way I can accurately understand my current strength. As you wish, the two ladies replied. The battle began. List rode on the 100-meter-long fire dragon Leo, and in his hand was the largest 10-meter-long dragon spear. He didn't use his dragon breath. He used brute force and supreme demonic dragon battle energy to fight Emily and Hippolyta. The dragon spear seemed to come to life in his hands. It blocked left and right, dispersing the two's storm-like attacks. No matter how powerful the impact of the two of them was, coupled with the secret book of dragon battle chi, they could not break through his defense. Roar! Roar! As dragons, Ethan and Aoun were enraged when they saw List's unwavering stance. Their violent magical energy connected with the Dragon Knight and burst forth with even greater strength. Unfortunately, List continued to block the attacks of the two Dragon Knight like he was taking a stroll in the park. He even had the leisure to find the flaws in Emily and Hippolyta's fighting style. He had fought alongside Ethan and Orn in the past, so he knew where they needed to improve on their draconic fighting techniques. Not enough, Emily. Your attack frequency isn't high enough. You and Ethan haven't found the right frequency yet. You're just mediocre at the same time. You need to increase the frequency of your attacks. Ethan will gradually adapt to your fighting style. Remember, the knight is the guide. He parried their attacks with his spear and urged Leo forward. The dragon spear swayed in the air, its tip producing countless spear sparks. Asterisk boom. 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 Asterisk every time he trembled, he would thrust his spear at Emily, who was on the dragon's back. The spear brushed past Emily's forehead. If he wanted to, he could stab the dragon knight to death with one move at any time. The difference in strength was simply crushing. A half-step barrier knight wasn't something the dragon knight could compare to. Stop. I understand my strength now. List withdrew his dragon spear and looked at the two girls calmly. You two still need to improve yourselves. Even a perfect stage dragon knight isn't the end of the training system. If you can keep up with me, I'll show you the way to the future. With that, he urged Leo to fly towards the celestial palace. Only an unreachable silhouette was left in the girl's eyes. Even when it disappeared into a black dot, it was still as dazzling as the sun. Chapter 11:25. The New Year festival of the second year of the Flame calendar was full of joy. The magic transmission array between Prairie Fire City and Reef City was completed a few days before the New Year festival. Reef City became another major trading city of the Fire Kingdom. Prairie Fire City also began to build in the hilly areas of the mercenary city-states. The opening of this trade route would successfully satisfy the various needs of the Fire Kingdom. Without any worries, List was ready to attack the alliance of the three countries. Father, the mission of the Outer Pavilion this year is to coordinate all the orders of chivalry and attack the Eagle Kingdom. I will personally defeat the Dragon Knight of the Eagle Kingdom one by one. The rest of the work should not be difficult, right? The Burning Legion is growing in size, but the orders of chivalry of the feudal nobles are still weak. However, as long as you defeat the Dragon Knight, the orders of chivalry of the Fire Kingdom will not be able to resist the orders of chivalry of the Eagle Kingdom. It will not be difficult to persuade them to surrender, Lee Williams said. But he still had some worries. List, are you sure you can defeat the enemy under the attack of so many Dragon Knight? My power has already surpassed the scope of the Dragon Knight. It is advancing to another level, and it is growing every day. List stretched out a hand and gently clenched it into a fist. One could see the surging supreme magic Do Chi evaporating in his palm. No matter how many Dragon Knight there are, they are no match for me. He paused. He added, the most important thing is that I am ready to ride on a new dragon. He was referring to the 4 mature soul fruits on the soul fruit tree. The 4 fruits corresponded to 4 dragons. He was ready to rob all the dragons of the Eagle Kingdom. The Eagle Kingdom originally had 9 dragons, and the vassal countries had 5 dragons. But now, 3 dragons in the kingdom had been snatched away by List. They were the Bronze Dragon, the Amethyst Dragon, and the Light Green Gem Dragon. The vassal kingdom also had a dragon snatched away by List. That was the Grey-Mouthed Iron Dragon. At present, the Eagle Kingdom had 10 dragons and 4 dragon knights, including its vassal states. White Iron Dragon Knight, Alex White Iron, Topaz Dragon Knight, Tracy Crying Blood Pelican, Lead Dragon Knight, Warren Inverted Golden Clock, Silver Dragon, White Iron Dragon, Brass Dragon, and Crimson Ruby Dragon Knight, Edward Crimson, Pink Ruby Dragon, Gold Emerald Dragon, Copper Dragon. I will mainly appease the Dragon and Dragon Knight of the Eagle Kingdom, but I will not be polite to the Dragon and Dragon Knight of the Eagle Kingdom. I can no longer guess your strength, List. As your father, I am proud of you, and my heart is filled with pride. The Tulip family is also proud of your birth. We hope that the Flame family will be able to exist for a long time, and forever be the pillar of the Tulip family. Lee William sighed emotionally. Father, I will. The Flame family will develop, and so will the Tulip family. I will never forget that I was born into the Tulip family. I am very gratified. Let my brother nurture Richard well. I think the one in the Tulip family most likely to become a Dragon Knight is Richard. Richard was the son of his brother, Levis. Yes, we are all focusing on nurturing Richard. Lee William had actually wanted to ask List if he could give Lytton a chance to ride a dragon, but when he remembered that Lytton and List had never been on good terms since young, he did not bring it up again. The current List was already an existence that needed to be looked up to. No one could control his will. No matter what, all the males in the Tulip family would have an oppressive air of nobility because of List's existence. They would enjoy the noble power of nobility for the rest of their lives. After the new year. As usual, List patrolled the territories of his followers, and went to the castles of the nobles to have a banquet to show that he was close to them. The first place he went to was his father, Lee William's territory, Tulip Island. The new Tulip Castle stood tall on the mountain range in the center of the island. It was tall and magnificent, but it was only a half-finished product. More than half of the castle was still under construction. This speed of construction was already very fast. Normally, large castles of nobles would take tens or even hundreds of years to build. The Fire Kingdom was able to flourish in the construction industry because of the technology of firing cement and red bricks. A few years' worth of progress was completed in a few years. The fire dragon stopped halfway up the mountain of the castle, lying there quietly. Balls of fire condensed on the surface of Leo's body, bathing the whole castle in a red glow. A knight pulled the grilled steak and carefully placed it in front of Leo for him to enjoy. How great! The great fire dragon. The knight of the Tulip family looked at Leo from afar, exclaiming in admiration. For a normal knight, no matter which dragon they saw, they would only describe it as great. The worship of dragons was deeply ingrained in the bones of every knight. Oh, List, my dearest grandson, the great king of the Fire Kingdom, you are finally willing to visit your grandmother. Madame Penelope stood at the castle gate, leaning on a stick used by women, to welcome List's arrival. List handed the cloak to the castle's butler, smiled, and hugged Madame Penelope. It was my carelessness, but seeing that you are still healthy, I am relieved. You will definitely live to be 100 years old. Madame Penelope had practiced qi in her early years, but she had long since declined to become an ordinary person. After the banquet began, the whole family chatted happily. As they chatted, they talked about List's marriage. After the Steel Ridge Kingdom declared its hostility towards the Fire Kingdom, the Red and White Rose family had a marriage alliance with the royal family of Blast Furnace Castle. A suitable marriage partner for List no longer existed. There were no princesses of suitable age in the major kingdoms, and princesses of small duchies were also not suitable. If he really wanted to choose a suitable candidate, he could either look for one in a distant kingdom, or wait for the little princesses of several kingdoms to grow up. Or he could simply give up on the marriage alliance and directly look for a woman of suitable age from within the country. List, although you are the king of a kingdom, marriage should be resolved as soon as possible. Only a king who gives birth to a child is a qualified king," said Madame Penelope. "I understand, grandmother." Liszt had also considered it, but there was no sense of urgency. He had already determined that he could live for a few hundred years, so what if he gave birth to a child? Sooner or later, the old would have to send off the young, so it was better not to have children for the time being. It would be better not to have children for the time being, lest it be difficult for him to have children for so many generations without dying. But then again, he had only been king for 2 years, and he already felt a little tired of it. "I will consider a candidate for queen as soon as possible, and then give birth to a child." At the end of the banquet, Liszt chose to stay at Tulip Castle for the night. He talked all night with his father, his elder brother, and his younger brother, Lytton, about the world's events and family matters. They were all adults and standard nobles. There was a huge gap in status, and there was no atmosphere of a big family. But at least there was a part of family affection that could be spoken from the heart. Liszt did not like the loneliness of being a loner. Early the next morning, he left Tulip Castle. Before leaving, Madame Penelope took out a potted plant and gave it to Liszt. "Although you are now a king and lack nothing, and have a lot of elves, this is a token of grandmother's heart. I have given many people potted plants, and only on the body of a child of glory can they germinate into elves." Liszt glanced at it and knew that it was just an ordinary potted plant, but he still picked it up. "I have taken good care of the potted plants you gave me. Go, my king. Roar." The fire dragon Leo soared into the sky like a black and red light, disappearing at the end of the horizon. Chapter 11:26. The war has begun. The Marquis of the Pea Island, Di Maria Iwashi, stood on the balcony of the top-floor office of the Fire Kingdom's administrative building, looking at the bustling crowds on both sides of Gilded Avenue. He sighed softly. "Uncle, the family's orders of chivalry have been assembled and are on standby. They will follow the kingdom's orders of chivalry and move out at any time." His nephew, Deborah Iwashi, stood behind him and said, "His Majesty's opening the way for this dragon-slaying battle and the orders of chivalry to charge and assist." Did he really think it through? Towards Liszt, all the ordinary knight of the Fire Kingdom had reached the level of blind worship. Basically, they would do whatever Liszt said. But as a great aristocrat, there would always be all kinds of different thoughts between the family and the kingdom. Di Maria smiled and turned to look at his nephew, who was no longer young. He said, "His Majesty is a very contradictory king. There is almost no lust for power in him, and he does not make any moves to control power. He is even unfamiliar with some political methods." Deborah listened quietly. In his mind, his uncle was the embodiment of wisdom. Di Maria pondered and said, "His Majesty is more like a knight than a king. He is more used to speaking with power. This is probably the difference in thinking between the Dragon Knight and us ordinary knight. In short, in terms of measuring power, His Majesty is the most authoritative existence in the Fire Kingdom, and even in the entire legendary continent. Indeed, His Majesty's power has long been unfathomable. The Dragon Knight of the Three-Nation Alliance must travel together before daring to go out for patrol. So when His Majesty decides to take the initiative and start the dragon-slaying battle, what we need to do is follow behind His Majesty." "But, Uncle, this time, His Majesty is facing a group of Dragon Knight. I dare not imagine how powerful the Dragon Knight of the Three-Nation Alliance will be." Di Maria smiled warmly. "Do you know how His Majesty described his power and the power of the Three-Nation Alliance when he convened a meeting of the Outer Court? How did he describe it? His Majesty said that he is a monolith, and the individual Dragon Knight of the alliance of the three countries is a grain of sand. No matter how much sand is gathered, it is still a plate of loose sand. Only the monolith is indestructible. When Di Maria repeated these words, Liszt's tone of voice surfaced in his mind. It was a kind of tranquility that transcended all worldly matters, as if all living beings were ants that were not to be feared. Deborah stared blankly for a moment before repeating, monolith and scattered sand. Sir Laird, I'll leave the Heart Island's defensive magic array to you. Your Majesty, please rest assured. The defensive magic array modified by Sir Achilles is very stable against the Dragon Knight's attack. I will guard the magic gate of the Heart Island for the kingdom. In the Soul Fort, Liszt was conversing with High Mage Laird Truth. The former High Mage of the noble Frost Empire had completely integrated into the Fire Kingdom. He had even found a lover and had an illegitimate child. Turning mages into arcanists was the first step in the reform of magic. The next step was to reform the way mages passed down their lineage. They would no longer focus on secrecy, but would integrate into the knight system and adopt an academic education system. All arcanists were also encouraged to marry and even establish arcana families. The current arcanists had completely become the model scientists in Liszt's mind. After Laird left, the Dean of the Royal Arcana Academy, Chris Truth, walked into the study. Your Majesty, Kenley's attitude is firm. She is not willing to get involved in the matters of the war. To avoid suspicion, she has been transferred to the Marine Laboratory on Anchor Island to study the purification of demons. Kenley Truth was the Vice Dean of the Royal Arcana Academy. She was born into the Magic Elephant family of the Steel Ridge Kingdom and had come to the Fire Kingdom to follow Truth's incarnation, a Chi. She had been obsessed with magic research and had not returned home for many years. She only communicated with her family through letters. However, her identity had always been an obstacle. After all, the Steel Ridge Kingdom and the Fire Kingdom were enemies. Liszt nodded. Help me tell Kenley that I have not lost my trust in her. However, since she is not interested in the war, she can focus on her research in the Marine Laboratory. When I unify the northeast corner of the legendary continent, I will treat the Magic Elephant family well. I will not make things difficult for her. He recognized Kenley's character. In fact, even if Kenley became a spy, it would not be a big deal. Under the suppression of great power, the so-called alliance of the three countries was nothing. As you wish, Your Majesty. How is the preparation of the Arcanists' magic battle team? With a large number of reinforcements from the ancient moon magicians, the magic battle team is equipped with 10 magic pools. They are fully armed. They only need to release projectile magic, so it is easy to train them. In an official battle, they should be comparable to Your Majesty's Dark Horse, Orders of Chivalry. Projectile magic was a combination of the lowest level of basic magic and the higher level of ordinary magic. It was simply magic that was released by condensing magic. For example, Water Arrow Spell, Water Arrow Volley, Flying Rock Spell, Wind Blade Spell, Multiple Wind Blades, and so on. Projectile magic was a large-scale battle. It extracted the magic stored in the magic pool, condensed it into a projectile, and threw it out. Boom, it exploded. This was an era where magic webs had shrunk. It was a new direction for magic battles. There would no longer be the problem of magic being disrupted by the knight's charge. Chris's evaluation of the magic battle team was that their strength was comparable to the Dark Horse, Orders of Chivalry. The Dark Horse, Orders of Chivalry, was the lowest of the Burning Legion. Therefore, overall, the magic battle team was not strong enough. However, it was much stronger than the Nobles' Orders of Chivalry. Moreover, it could cast long-range spells and was a great supplement for the Burning Legion's Orders of Chivalry. Very well, let this battle test the quality of the magic battle team. If the effect is good, the Royal Arcane Academy can promote it. Yes, Your Majesty. Chris said a few words and then got up to leave. Liszt leaned back in his chair and looked at the blue sea and blue sky outside the window. From time to time, a knight of World of Warcraft would fly across the sky in the distance. The entire Heart Island had become a war fortress. With his actions, a mighty epic war would begin. First, I will break the back of the Eagle Kingdom. After that, I will annex the Iron and Steel Ridge and the Blast Furnace Castle. This year should be enough, right? He was very optimistic in his heart. With the power of a half-step stronghold knight, there was no need for any conspiracy. He just needed to fight fair and square. Closing his eyes, he could feel the invisible Bard flying in the sky above the Eagle Kingdom. Bard was arranged by him to find the nature nodes. When all the nature nodes in the Eagle Kingdom were found, he would be able to quickly travel with Fire Dragon Leo and surround any Dragon Knight. This time, the dragon-slaying battle would not be a small fight. Only 1 or 2 Dragon Knights would die. A large number of dragons and Dragon Knight were destined to fall. The power of fate surrounded him, and List could even feel the smoke dragon egg in his mind stirring. As long as I continue to push fate forward, the smoke dragon will be able to obtain more magic and be reborn. When the smoke dragon is reborn, will fate be able to be reversed at will? The birth of the smoke dragon depended on his will. In other words, the new smoke dragon's dragon personality would be replaced by List's personality. It was equivalent to his clone. I am the smoke dragon. The power of fate is my power. Chapter 11:27. The war was about to begin, and the mist was gathering by the sea. The alliance of the 3 countries had also felt List's determination, so the orders of chivalry to patrol the coastline and combat smuggling increased to 7 dragons. 7 dragons? Unfortunately, loose sand is loose sand. You don't understand what the barrier is. I haven't completely broken the barrier, but I've touched the law of fire. It's just a trace of the law, but it's enough to make Leo and me transcend the world. List was very patient. He asked the kingdom to prepare for war, but he was still leisurely playing in the mortal world and patrolling the territory. Invisible Dragon Bard searched for natural nodes in the Eagle Kingdom every day. Every natural node found meant that List's control over the Eagle Kingdom increased a little. This was just the beginning. In the future, he would continue to search for natural nodes in the Iron and Steel Ridge and the Blast Furnace Castle, so that the shadow would cover every Dragon Knight. Now, he returned to the Fire Kingdom and came to a training square in the Royal Knight Academy. A group of children stood in the square, ranging from 7 to 12 or 13 years old. Most of them were boys, and a small number were girls. There were Moon Killers, Eagle Killers, and Sapphire Killers. Now, they were all children of the Fire Kingdom. Are you sure they all have the physique of the fire element? He asked Lucy and Ruth, who accompanied him. Yes, Your Majesty. Lucy, who had already put on the uniform of a Grand Arcanist, answered respectfully. She was not yet an adult, but she had already shown her feminine side. She and her sister Ruth were the twins guided by the Smoke Mission. They had very outstanding magic talents. They studied under a Chi, and now, at such a young age, they had already become Grand Arcanists. One of the criteria to become a Grand Arcanist was that one's magic ability must reach the level of an Archmage. There was no doubt that the twins had both broken through the level of an Archmage. They had the potential to become Archmages in the future. The older sister Lucy was currently a Chi's laboratory assistant, and the younger sister Ruth was Chris's administrative assistant. They were the future managers of the Royal Arcana Academy. Your Majesty, the fire magic sensitive array designed by Teacher A Chi can accurately measure the deep nature of each child who produces battle energy. I'm in charge of measuring all the children of the right age, so there won't be any mistakes, the younger sister Ruth said proudly. List nodded calmly. If that's the case, then let's start preparing for the Fire Demon Swordsman transformation ritual. Fire Demon Swordsman, this was his idea a long time ago, derived from Paris Flame's identity as a black dragon. Paris had now become a great swordsman of light and magic, and her combat ability was roughly equivalent to that of a full-fledged Sky Knight. Shackled by the cultivation system, he was unable to improve any further. However, this strength was already very good. Not every knight had the opportunity to become a Domain Knight or a Dragon Knight. A perfect Sky Knight was the peak that a normal knight could foresee. Now that he had created a batch of Fire Demon Swordsmen, it would be a good way to replenish his personal guards. Orders of Chivalry lacked candidates, the Fire Kingdom still had too few geniuses. Roar! Leo descended from the sky and landed in front of the square. He was the protagonist of the Fire Demon Swordsman transformation ritual. Lucy bowed deeply to Liszt and replied, "Your Majesty, the transformation ritual needs the help of you and Lord Leo. I understand the process of this ritual. When Leo needs to release the Fire Dragon Supreme Demon, I will cooperate with you. Let's get started." "As you wish, Your Majesty." The transformation ritual of the Fire Demon Swordsman did not have many complicated steps, and these children did not even need to do anything. At the beginning, Paris was forced to transform into a white dragon by the court great magician of the Grand Duchy of Maple Leaf. He used many complicated means and had to sacrifice his life. In the end, he still failed and became a black dragon. The current ritual was more similar to the infusion of magic, using the magic array to build an environment that could accommodate magic in the child's body. Lucy and Ruth began to direct the surrounding arcanists to activate the magic array, and the ritual officially began. Jim had grown taller. He was no longer the little baby who followed his mother to Flame Island from the Kingdom of Eagle. In the past 2 years, because his mother remarried a widowed and lame knight, he became the son of a knight. Although the knight was a little grumpy and occasionally beat his mother when he was drunk. But as a member of the former Dark Horse Orders of Chivalry, he enjoyed many benefits. One of them was that his children could receive an education qualification from the best knight academy near the fief, so Jim received a good education. After showing outstanding talent at the Knight Academy, he was recommended by the Academy to participate in the selection of the Fire Demon Swordsman. He was honored to be selected. His lame knight stepfather told him that the Fire Demon Swordsmen were the guards of His Majesty the King and the most glorious knight of the kingdom. "Jim, work hard to become a Fire Demon Swordsman, and your mother will be proud of you." "Will you be proud of me too?" "Why not?" His stepfather's words echoed in his ears, and Jim took a deep breath. He desperately hoped that he could become a Fire Demon Swordsman. He wanted to fulfill his childhood wish of becoming a knight who could protect his mother, and he also hoped that after he obtained the glory of a Fire Demon Swordsman, his mother would receive more respect. He was grateful for the protection his stepfather gave him, and he hoped that his mother could be happy and not be beaten again. Whoosh! The light of the magic formation was a little dazzling. Jim felt his newly born low-level battle energy move rhythmically like waves with a special force. Then, he suddenly heard a roar that made him shiver. Roar! In the next moment, he raised his head and saw the gigantic fire dragon crouching near the square flapping its wings, creating balls of flames that crashed into the light of the magic array. Boom! The entire magic formation shook violently, as if it would collapse at any moment. "Leo, be gentle." The voice was not very loud, but it was clear and powerful. It echoed in Jim's heart and ears. In his young mind, a tall figure that he could not look straight at instantly appeared. "It's His Majesty the King," Jim thought. In the Fire Kingdom, from 80-year-old women to 3-year-old babies, there was no one who didn't know the name of the King of Fire Kingdom, Liszt. In other kingdoms, the knight's words were always, "Knight's glorious blessing." In the Fire Kingdom, many people chose, "His Majesty the King's glorious blessing." This was not flattery, but respect from the bottom of their hearts. Jim's stepfather said this every day, and he was proud that he had once followed His Majesty the King. His Majesty the King will unify the 3 kingdoms in the end. Like a fanatic, every time after drinking, his stepfather would proclaim this to everyone he met, and Jim could not help but be influenced. His Majesty the King will unify the three kingdoms in the end, and I will become a fire demon swordsman, a guard of His Majesty the King. Mother will be proud of me, and stepfather will also respect mother more. Just as he was thinking. Suddenly, his body felt like it was thrown into a raging fire. Jim gritted his teeth and did not shout out loud, but silently endured the burning of the fire. There were other boys beside him who could not bear the burning and cried out. Soon, an adult's voice sounded, "Your Excellency Ruth, this child's willpower is too weak." Then, a cold female voice sounded, "Eliminated, he is no longer qualified to bear Lord Leo's magic." Jim's heart trembled, and he gritted his teeth even more firmly to resist the burning pain. Just when he was muddle-headed and about to give up, the feeling finally disappeared. Then, waves of warmth came from his tired body, soothing the suffering he had suffered. "Congratulations, little ones." The king's voice was like a spring breeze. Jim opened his eyes and saw the king wearing golden-striped leather armor and a black and red cape walking towards them. "If you can withstand the magic baptism of the fire dragon, you will be qualified to become a fire demon swordsman. There is still a long way to go, but the guard orders of chivalry will open his arms to you. Work hard in your training." Chapter 11:28. The fire dragon super magic in the children's bodies is transforming well. They can already train according to the training system of the fire demon swordsman. Your Majesty, the transformation ceremony was very successful. Lucy came to report. Seeing that there were no servants in the study, she walked behind List and massaged List's shoulders with her fair and slender fingers. Lord Leo consumed so many fire dragon super magic in this transformation ceremony. Will it negatively affect your training, Your Majesty? List leaned against the back of the chair and let Lucy massage his shoulders. He flipped through a document and said, "There are enough volcano super magic in the volcanoes of the Doomsday volcanoes for Leo to replenish. Leo is already an adult, and super magic is no longer a shackle for him. The lack of super magic would limit the growth of a young dragon, but an adult dragon only needed super magic to sustain its daily consumption." Moreover, List and Leo had already touched the barrier and were in the process of mastering the law of fire. Once they broke through the barrier and mastered the law of making something out of nothing, they would be able to continuously produce fire dragon super magic. They would no longer need to absorb it from the outside world, just like how the magic dragon's magic power was endless. Since the era of the Moon Empire, even though the magic net had shrunk, the magic power was still inexhaustible. Lord Leo is growing really fast. I remember when I first met Lord Leo, he was still a very small young dragon, Lucy said reminiscently. List smiled. When you were young? Lucy, you are also a child now, right? In the legendary continent, 16 was the age of adulthood. Lucy walked up to List, stuck out her full chest, and said seriously, "Your Majesty, Lucy celebrated her birthday last month. Now Lucy and Ruth are both adults." Her blonde hair was soft on one side, and her pretty face was covered with a light blush. She looked as attractive as a ripe apple. List stood up from the chair, lifted Lucy's chin, and looked down at this female Grand Arcanist. She was less than 1.65 meters tall, but in front of List, who was 1.9 meters tall, she was not much different from a child. "Well, I didn't realize that you two were already adults." He sighed slightly. Time passed really quickly. Unknowingly, he had already been in this world for a whole 9 years. From a 16-year-old ignorant youth, he had grown into a 25-year-old youth. The cute little girls around him were also gradually walking towards the blooming of youth, the best years of their lives. Amelie and Hippolyta, who became the Dragon Knight, Paris, who managed the kingdom's finances, and Lucy and Ruth, the Grand Arcanists. The only one who had not yet reached adulthood was probably the little sea monster Achi. But Achi's body had actually reached adulthood long ago. Growing feet was a sign of a siren's adulthood. As a magic shooter, there was no such thing as an immature soul. Your Majesty. Lucy looked away, her cheeks flushed red, and her voice sounded like a mosquito flapping its wings. List loosened his fingers and said lightly, "You and Ruth will stay in the Palace of Stars, Moon, and Sun tonight." Lucy's mouth gaped open in surprise. After a long while, a sweet smile appeared on her face as she nodded vigorously. She had been waiting for this day for a long time. In April, the grass was long and the birds were flying. In the Palace of Stars, a dragon elf dressed in a tuxedo, with a pale yellow gourd on his head, looked at List like a little adult. "Ella's temper is too bad. I think the best solution is to expel it from the residential area of the little and big elves and restrict its access." This was the gourd dragon elf, Kelly, who had successfully completed its evolution. From the beginning, it was stimulated by Ella to evolve, so the first thing it did after the evolution was to find fault with Ella. List coughed softly and said, "Kelly, I will educate Ella well. Now the kingdom has a great demand for gourds. I hope you can go to the plantation to help." "Of course I will go to the plantation. I'm going to live in the plantation. I like the scenery there. The palace is too monotonous." Kelly replied. "Yes, the palace is indeed monotonous. You should plant more gourd vines. When the gourd vines climb up, it will add a lot of beautiful scenery to the palace. Thank you for your kindness, but I still decided not to plant so many gourd vines. You know Yachty likes to grow buckwheat, Callie likes to grow cannibal trees, and Ash likes to grow peas. But the palace is not a plantation. The landscape plants here are taken care of by professional magic planters, so there is no need to worry. They have terrible taste. I thought your taste would be as elegant as mine." "Ahem, Kelly, don't talk like that. You will make me think you are Parker." The image of the giant algae dragon elf, Parker, emerged in List's mind. He grinned and laughed, shouting that he was the most handsome. Kelly shrugged his shoulders. "It's just a suggestion." Then he turned and flew away. The number of big elves in the current Palace of Stars did not increase much. After the temporary suspension of the development order, the source of big elves mainly relied on the evolution of the little elves. But even if List could guide the power of fate and bless the evolution of the little elves, it still required a lot of luck. There was also the probability of failure. So the number of elves in the palace entered a period of steady growth. However, the number of his dragon elves did not decrease. At present, there were 6 dragon elves: Cannibal Tree, Buckwheat, Phoenix Tree, Giant Algae, Pea, and Gourd. There was also the Coffee Elf, Mondo, and an unnamed Barley Elf, which was in the process of evolution. There were 8 of them. 8 had reached the level of the average royal family. The number of elves will increase slowly. It's a pity that Ella hasn't been able to trigger the evolution. I don't know what kind of dragon it has. Ella is really different, brother. Have you noticed that Ella's emotions and IQ are the highest among all the big elves, even more abundant than the dragon elves? Achi returned from Uragadon Mountain and was ready to stay in the Palace of Stars for a few more days to crack some of the runes engraved. Wow! Ella sat on List's shoulder, not conscious of being a third wheel. List laughed. Ella is really different. It is unique. I don't know which dragon it will like. If I knew, I would just grab it. The Smoke Mission once mentioned Ella's uniqueness. The power of fate around Ella was indeed greater than that of the average big elf. Achi rubbed Ella's head. In the palace, apart from List, only Achi could rub its head. Even Paris and Emily could not. In fact, Ella likes you the most. Few big elves have such an intimate attitude. Elves were born from plants, and plants were single. Therefore, the character of the elves was similar to that of plants. They were not social creatures and did not have strong emotions. Even the owner of the contract only had feelings brought by the power of the contract. It was because of this that the buckwheat dragon elf, Yadi, was able to quickly integrate into the palace of the stars, moon, and sun when she came to Inferno Island from the eagle royal family. The man-eating tree dragon elf, Kali, often ventured out and seldom stayed in the palace. The phoenix-perching parasol tree dragon elf, Infant, lived in the distant Doomsday volcano chain. The giant algae dragon elf, Parker, stayed in the undersea forest all day. The pea dragon elf, Ash, was obsessed with the art of rope, and Klee was ready to move into the gourd plantation. Only Ella liked to stick to List. Yes, Ella likes me the most. List smiled, but Achi's words had stirred up waves in his heart. He looked at Ella, but he was thinking, Ella likes me the most? Ella is the most unique elf in the smoke mission. So, the dragon that Ella should really like should not be the smoke dragon that merged with me, right? The meeting with Ella is the intertwining of fate? You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.